Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. Hi, Dave.
Hi, and there are already more people watching this than we're watching the U.S. Nationals in person in San Jose. So we are so excited to break this all down with you. If you are new here, please subscribe below. Remember to smash that like button. About midway through this video, after we do our chat, we have an interview with Christy Ness, who is just, a real training guru and someone with a wealth of knowledge that was really interesting to talk to. So
yes, I think a lot of athletes could benefit from her approach at the moment. Yeah.
I think she inspires discipline is what I got from that approach. And it does seem to be lacking a bit in our skaters at times. So
yeah.
Well, where to start, Jonathan? There was the juniors, there was the seniors. What do you want to talk about? We haven't talked about national.
Let's start with juniors.
Okay.
Because you have over the past few months mentioned several skaters from New Jersey, and I didn't always know to whom you were referring. So it was really nice to be able to watch them all. And of the people that I was watching today, there were so many wonderful personality-filled moments. And as we've discussed, it's sort of a rarity in the sport to show that right now. So what I appreciate, I don't know if that's Nina as she helps with the choreography or if it's just the general vibe of the training facility, but what I saw were a lot of people that felt confident in their own skin, that were able to perform and emote as they wanted. And to me, that is the joy of skating. And we'll talk about it at some point in the video. Obviously, why was no one there? Why I maybe could have gone, I could have made it work, but chose not to. And when I think about some of that expense and then some of the hoopla that happens in the arena during the event, it's just, it's not calling to me at the moment to, I didn't have to go and see some of these things live outside of maybe a Jason or some.
Last year it was so great to go for the Olympic trials. For me, the decision I decided not to go is, there are certain events I want to do and competitions I'm thinking of as an adult. I also want to take vacations and have a life. Some years you can't miss it. You want to go, For me this year, if I'm going to fly across the country, stay in a hotel for a week and get outrageously expensive tickets, that's a big expense in January. The year is just starting at work and we do live shows here. This year, it didn't feel, honestly, like the field was something that I needed to see in person, right?
That's what it is, yeah.
We went last year and it was phenomenal. I wanted to see it. I wanted to see Nathan. I wanted to see Hubble and Donahue. I wanted to see these skaters in person one more time. I feel relatively okay with having seen most of them before. I would have loved to have seen Jason's program in person, absolutely.
Yes.
But in that case, I felt I would have loved to see Alexa's last nationals, but overall, it was a cost-benefit analysis ratio, and it didn't.
Yeah, I think for almost all of us.
Which I think is something that U.S. figure skating has to look at. Why were the tickets so expensive? You can make more money maybe if you lower the price a bit and get more people. I also think passing out free tickets is something that they should consider, because if you want to grow a sport, a good way to do it is to make it look like it is
thriving
and valued, right? And when you have no one in an arena, the energy dips.
Of course.
And the performance can also dip, right? Yeah. A great crowd can lift people and it sells it. There was nothing.
National moments, like obviously because it was San Jose, our first thought always goes to Rudy's iconic performance in '96. And part of that was the feeling from the crowd in the arena. And even though like someone like Jason, for instance, was giving us those performances here at such limited numbers, and they all had these weird barcodes on the seats, so it was even more obvious where people were not. It's tough.
Yeah, and when Jenny competed at Novice Nationals, we were talking the other day, she said that they bussed in kids from schools and boys and girls clubs that had never seen skating before, but this was their field trip and they were cheering for everyone and really excited and into it.
And quite honest, I mean, not to just always bring up opera, but that's just my frame of reference. Like also an art form that is struggling with Are we relevant? Are we dying? What is happening? So the tradition is always on the final orchestra dress rehearsal to bus in 8 million students to experience it, see it, get used to it, and you're building audiences in that. And quite frankly, as a performer, those audiences were always the most enthusiastic and excited.
Oh, yeah. I mean, my nephew came to see me in the Christmas show this year. He had never seen me skate live before, and was super excited when he found out that the kids were his age, that Igor's daughter and her partner were skating, and he couldn't believe they were his age. And they didn't fall, but Uncle Dave did. But, you know, it was okay. That's the first thing he told my sister.
Olympics favors the naive, and so do winter skating shows.
But you know what? Other people fell more, is what he said. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Isn't that so funny? My nieces also, when we were watching something a while back together, they were so obsessed when they had the green boxes versus the red boxes. They were so interested in who was going to get the red boxes. But whatever pulls you in is exciting. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great. I think you have to think long-term marketing. I think people often think short-term, well, we want to sell tickets. Well, when the tickets aren't sold by a certain date, I would give them out, because if you want people to want to take part in skating, you have to make it look like it's a hot ticket. Like it's a great environment. You'll have a better broadcast. You'll have a better environment. You'll have people want to come back the next year. There's nothing worse than being in a dead arena, because you think, why am I here?
Right.
And then it takes so long.
Why did I spend the money? Why did I take the time? Why did I,
It's lonely. I mean, arenas can be big. It's cavernous, right? I don't know. I remember sitting in the arena last year, and some of the events, you have a lot of time to think about your life, even as it's going on, right? There were things, I don't know, I felt like a personal vibe happening, and I should have followed that more. But anyway, I just, you understand, like it's just,
I got you.
Yeah. So, but it also can be great. I mean, the men's, I remember the warm up before Nathan went out. I mean, it was intense and crazy. And in a good way. So, and that prepares people for competition. So yeah, but I think
it's nice to be on the couch at home. I understand. I mean, again, same thing with opera. Once they offer things streaming, it's easier for people to stay on the couch. But what also is nice about going in person, for like when we were in Nashville, for instance, is I'm not reliant on the camera to show me what's happening in a warm up. I get to pick who I'm following and watching. And that becomes very exciting, I think, in person. Is that you're always better into what they want to show. Yeah,
it's always better in person if you can go and get decent seats. Certainly it's better, and it's something that you really you learn a lot too about competition, about how different skaters behave in a warm-up, or perform, or what they're like before they go out, or you start to see trends, and it's interesting and it's informative. So yeah,
especially to watch the whole thing unfold in real time, as opposed to going back and just watching disjointed clips of just one program. Yeah. Out of context, it sort of loses some of its magic as well.
Yeah. So you were talking about some of the juniors. I mean, people love Kirk Hagueto. We talked about him a little bit during the Junior Grand Prix.
Total showman, like a little Philippe Candeloro, and not just because he was doing The Godfather. Was he the Godfather guy?
He was the Godfather, and then he is the Holland Mountain King for the short program.
Right. And
last year he did winter for the Alexei Yagudin, winter the Bond, right? And they told him to throw the snow up, so he does that after every. I mean, he can't stop. Okay, he cannot. But
stick with it. Okay,
he's like that every day. Like, he's the mascot of the rink, and we skated together for 2 years. I don't skate there anymore in Hackensack. I skate before work in Montclair, which is just like phenomenal. But that's just every exhibition he comes up with some crazy costume and has a ton of personality. So,
and I'd say what I love about whatever's happening in the coaching team is that they're not trying to diminish it. They're not trying to shove him into some sort of other box. They're letting him be emotive. They're letting him show personality, and it's infectious to watch.
Yeah, they do try to get him to work on his skating skills and work on the polish. I mean, I think that's it's the beauty of him, and it's the one thing he has to work on is just that attention to detail. He can get so excited, but he can also really deliver, and he's an extremely hardworking kid, but just loves it. His mom was the volunteer for the junior women's free skate, so she was working the gate. I mean, like, very down to earth. She works at the rink. It's not like he skates with Sasha Fegan, you know, and that's like a totally, you know, his brother skates. It's very structured, and Kirk is reeling off triples, like almost like he's playing. I mean, he works very hard, but it's a different energy. You know, they're different personalities.
And the sport we have seen just through the perfectionism and as you climb the ranks can sort of beat that joy out of you. And so to see someone just still having a total blast with it was delightful. I thought the junior girl from North Jersey was outstanding.
Which Katie or Mia?
Mia.
Yes.
I enjoyed her very much.
So I think I mentioned her last other show. You know, her sister's in the ballet, in the School of American Ballet, and Mia obviously has a lot of ballet. I mean, she's Nina's favorite.
I don't know how she couldn't be. Yeah, it was. Really
I wanted her to do Paquita. Julia picked this piece. You know, I'm not going to argue with Julia over music. You know, but
okay.
I wouldn't argue with Julia. Okay. She gets it done. She's a taskmaster. Okay.
Okay.
That's why we love her. Okay. That's
but in the junior men, definitely nice to see. Now they were saying Luca, like not really saying this.
Yeah.
A really lovely outing for him. Nice to see him win this.
That quad is so lofty and gorgeous. And I think when Jason finished, I thought we may never see a program like this again. But Luca does seem to be someone who can balance the technical and the artistic approach. And I think there's a lot of potential there because he has that balance, right? I think he really does a good job of blending the artistry and the athleticism, and I think that that's going to take him a long way. You know, I don't think he'll have to get as many quads as quickly as someone else if he does what he does with quality. I think he will go a long way, and I think consistency goes a long way in this sport. And there are those who try to put in 6 quads, and then you see what happens when
if it backfires. Yeah.
So I do think that you know, that steady approach oftentimes is probably the right way to go for a skater that has well-rounded skating, and he's also more pleasing to watch as a viewer. So
yes, agreed.
And I think it has to build confidence, right? If you're at these big events and you train a certain way and then go out and perform well, you feel like you can handle it to add the next element in, rather than going out trying all your most difficult jumps and then bombing. You know,
or even going in knowing it's kind of a gamble if it will work. Yeah.
I also think Jacob Sanchez has something really special, and he's been like a slower burn. He's been in the junior and the novice, you know, for a long time, and really, really talented, and has that there's a certain spark that he has. I skated with him once over the summer. They were switching rinks, and I was visiting a coach in Brewster, New York, and he was there. So, you know, he definitely has a lot of power. He's coached by Ksenia Makarova's parents, the Russian skater. She was at the Olympics in 2010 for Russia. And her parents are Selezhneva and Makarov, and that's who works with him. And I know Matt Lind had help with choreography. So he is good. And then Robert, who trains with Kirk and Hackensack, was third, and he has a lot of raw athleticism and power, but does not have that showmanship that Kirk has. That's kind of the one thing he needs to work on. He's very young Timothy Gable-ish. Jenny laughs because when Robert skates out, he's the nicest kid. But when he skates out, he's just kind of like, she's like, oh, hi, I'm here. Like, you have to go and watch it. Like, they need to work on that. So but the Hackensack Kiss and Cries, though, the coaches were big energy, big personalities. If you go back, they all were who they were.
And you know what? I appreciate that. That's why we tune in. Yeah. Because again, we see a lot of sort of the same generic, it's like a formula, even in this almost staged kiss and cry sort of behavior at times. So it's nice to see real people doing
I thought it was interesting. Nina was like really motherly and like she can be really tough in the rink too, but also has that other side to her. So
nice to see. Yeah.
Well, she does have that side to her, but she's also like in the rink, like she's from the ballet, so she's tough, you know, like, yeah. Listen, I would not skate on my toe picks in front of Nina. Like she is going to hear it on the other end of the rink and tell someone.
Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this with Christy when you guys listened to the interview. But the microphones were so loud on the ice that all I heard was constant scraping of the blades. And even people I know that probably are not that loud in person were just really reading as just scratchy scratch.
It was definitely emphasized. And the other thing is, you know, right, like the sound, what a spin sounds like versus a jump. And during the junior ladies, it was driving me crazy. Do you ever watch a TV show and the audio is just like a millisecond off, but the audio isn't matching the word?
Yeah.
And it takes me completely out of the viewing experience and it drives me insane.
Yeah.
This was happening during the junior ladies where someone's jumping and it sounds like they're spinning and then they're spinning and it's going like,
yeah.
That is not the sound of a spin.
Right.
So yes, it was definitely amplified and delayed at times on people.
Yes. So, yeah. It was confusing. Among a couple things at this nationals that really confused me.
Yeah. Also, did NBC tell Johnny to oversell everything? Is that just something that they do as a strategy?
The point of insincerity again, and we were talking about this. Maybe it was, I don't remember who, but when everything is so lovely and everything is so magical and everyone is so excellent, there's no competition. Then everyone should have won. And obviously that's not the case. And I think to have a point of view about a program or a skater is important for us to know. And again, Dick Button, love him or hate him, he was teaching us to be passionate about the sport and passionate that he wasn't seeing something he wanted to see or so passionately loving something that he was seeing that he really valued in skating. And this was just sort of, again, it seems to me they're looking for some hilarious zinger or comparison. And I just kind of want some insight in those moments. Yeah.
So Johnny's an interesting case because he was one of my favorite skaters to follow. And I thought if you watch his reality show, the first season was fascinating because he was mostly himself. And when you would see him just in the training environments, he's captivating and a great personality and also has a more serious side to him.
Serious, yeah, kind of nerdy almost, which I love. Yeah.
When he amps it up, it becomes insincere.
It's a show. And that was my issue at first when they were really trying to make Adam a crossover star. Everyone was like, what is your problem with him? And I was like, I don't think it's him. I think he's playing a character. And I think
Adam is a more natural, sassy mix of both. I think and Johnny, it has his own outlandishness, but it's more of a caricature in that way where I think Adam is witty in a way that Johnny is more outlandish than witty, right? Okay. But I find when he's talking about someone's magic carpet ride, it just seems so...
that line hit me weird too. Yeah.
It just hits me weird as if you were listening to him or what he picks up that he's going to like or not. And
but to me, that comment is about Johnny making the comment. It's not about what the skater was actually able to create.
Yeah. And sometimes it's weird. Sometimes with Johnny and Tara made a comment where I thought, wait, you never competed under the IJS, right? And then she was talking about having a big lead. And I was like, well, what? I mean, so do you mean like if you were first and Michelle was fourth? Or I wasn't sure what she meant, right? But more, I think with the different foil, Tara would also be different, right? Like if it with Tara and Terry, I think you would get more of the competitive Olympic champion Tara. When you put her next to Johnny, you get her other side of her person. I mean, we all have multiple sides of our personalities.
Of course,
right?
yeah.
So, and I would happen to prefer wanting to know more about Tara, the competitor, right? Less of this making nationals. It's almost like a weird pageant the way Johnny discusses it, but not in. I can't, like, it's a strange vibe that doesn't feel authentic.
And who knows? I mean, that it's very possible that's what they're being encouraged to do by the producers. I think in these moments, the fault lies as much with the people producing as much as the people actually doing the talking. I think it's
they clearly want them to wear their outlandish outfits and things.
Fun, make it fun.
But I think it needs I personally think it needs a balance, but that's
in the commentary.
I think Adam, rewatching some of the coverage, I think has more depth as a commentator.
And knowing it's just begun. So I think it will only continue to be more insightful and draws your eyes to things that you want an Olympic level skater to tell you to draw your eye into. And
I think he would be great in that position. That's my full. You could have Tara and Johnny do an intro or something other role, or create a certain other aspect of the broadcast. I just think he has more substance, and for the long term that it's better for that. My personal opinion.
If the network and the producers are looking for substance, I certainly as a viewer am craving some. Yeah.
Well, I think authenticity comes across with ultimately at the end of the day. So it just seems like a show, and sometimes Johnny would like favor the Russian skater more, or like oversell something, which gets into his whole stuff that's just a little haphazard. And it just is a little inconsistent, which I know that sometimes people find them too critical. I don't mind critical commentary. I actually want someone to inform why one skater is better than another.
Right.
I think that that's actually really important.
And I'm sorry, with time, I keep going back. That's what Dick did. Like, Dick Button had a passion for the sport and how he wanted to see it done and what his core values in the sport were. And so you could learn to follow with him and see a layback position and know that Dick and Peggy weren't going to like it, or the next camel position and know that they were going to gush over it. I think that's part of educating the audience.
Yeah. And I definitely also think that they need to I think that there need to be new agents. I think it's great that Ari Zakarian represents Ilia and is also he works with Elage, right? And I think that I think that we need people who have a handle on social media to work with these skaters.
Yeah.
Because it can give them bigger followings, and then which helps the sport, and it can give them income. Yeah. So, and it's a very expensive sport. We talk later about Christy about, skaters having agents or whatnot, but I do think not that everyone needs to be an influencer, but it does help pay the bills, right? And even just building their following or posting some training clips, something. Yeah. It's important for them and for the sport, and it gives them a career after. I mean, Elage was not a world champion, but he's an in-demand professional skater now. So
more than other national champions. Yeah.
And I think it actually ultimately encourages creativity and individuality. Someone like an Amber Glenn is more original, but she also showcases this side of herself.
Right.
Also, that Mia Callan seems to be a little bit of a gritty skater. I really appreciated that when the women's event was going on. I forget if it was junior or senior, but she posted herself, she just missed qualifying for nationals, had a really rough skate. She posted herself doing a quad triple. I was yes. Okay. Just a quiet during the nationals moment. You go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that summer when Ashley was doing a lot of shows. Gracie had just come on the scene, and Gracie was with Alex Arachev doing like double axel, triple toe, half loop, triple sow, just crazy combinations.
That's the game.
That's the game, but it made it fun.
Yeah,
it's fun, and people are like, "Oh,
how long did that rivalry fuel fan interest for nationals?"
And they really were competitive because they were both great.
Yeah,
in different ways, they were both great.
Right.
I wish that more of Paulina's personality that we see on Instagram now was apparent when she was skating. And I really wish that she could have come back. I think she has better presentation and lines now. And
she has something to say more than it seemed like was being said at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, the Gone with the Wind or something like that. Yeah.
Paulina's Instagram post now. I mean, I'm just like, I need that level of self-love. Like
she has the point of view, that's for sure. Yeah.
She has confidence, and you know what? That sit spin was gorgeous, okay, when she did it, okay? And she can twizzle for, I can't count that high.
So all her dance tests, yeah.
Yes, she took all of her dance tests, and she learned proper edges from Sasha Fadeev. Yes, we do know that.
Right. She's a stickler about Let's Edges. We do know that.
She really is, yes.
Yeah.
But that's what we love about Paulina.
Yes, so, exactly. So for instance, for me, just sort of jumping right into the ladies.
Get into it.
That's sort of what I was missing. You know, we had the people that were top four sort of were different from one another. And then to me, once we get below there, albeit lovely programs and, you know, all sort of the same, interchangeable, forgettable often, you know, and these are people, I wonder, are you really adding to the depth of ladies skating, or can you please go help our pairs discipline, which is clearly in dire need of help? So I think there are a lot of great young lady skaters that were here, women skaters that were here that could really make a splash in
so
pairs.
Who would you put in pairs? Like,
I mean, is Audrey Shin available?
That was my first, and I would put her with Danny O'Shea, okay? Because they're more age appropriate than he is, and she has a bang-in triple toe, okay? And you clearly don't even need two triples in senior pairs anymore.
Or throws, yeah. And you don't even have to land them if they're double.
I do think that if Russia is back, that will change, but if you have a triple toe and a double axel, you could go pretty far in senior pairs. And some of Audrey's jumps are not rotated under pressure. And I don't think that's going to change at this stage in her
career. She has something to offer. It's not to say, oh, you can't cut it, so just go take this easy prize. It's go thrive in a new discipline.
Go win nationals and be in the top 5 in the world, potentially. This is what we're saying. I think so many people take that as the biggest offense ever. But look at Alexa, right? Is it better to be Alexa Knierim, world champion, landing those throws and stars on ice? I mean, she has changed how pairs is perceived in the US. I really wish that they had also funded Kanan LeDuc and Callalang and Johnson to come back, because I don't think that the US, Lou and Mitrofanov were always so boring. But I really think that there's a lack of depth, and you're never going to raise the level of competition unless they're, again, it's more exciting to watch.
Of course.
And I think I like to watch Alexa when she has a reason to be a little feisty, right? And that's fun. I do think we might see Ashley Kane back. I don't know. I just thought like she came in like the Grand Dame from the Queen of Disney, like she's Linda Fradiani, talking to Andrea Joyce. And I was like, if I were Mitch, I'd be like, all right, who are you going to skate with? Brandon? We'll pay for you to go with Brandon. Because I think Alexa will probably move to Chicago with Chris, maybe start a family, it sounds like. Is Brandon really done? We can, boom.
Yeah.
We're going to put Ashley Kane.
There's a world of great finishes waiting for them.
Yeah. I don't see things changing for Audrey Shin. And I think you have to, at a certain point, be like, do you want to be 6th, 7th, 8th at a Grand Prix? Or do you want to win national?
Flash, yeah.
I actually think Mia Bargot could look gorgeous in lifts.
Well,
I don't know what she can do. I mean, you know, but you never know who's going to sparkle in a pair. But that's someone I would be like, I would be curious to see what that would look like. Yeah. But I think,
I was following Anne's updates, live from the arena, and she was really into Claire Seo. But even for me, although she was doing a very admirable job, it's not to take away from what she was doing, but it wasn't historical. It wasn't memorable. I don't know where it goes.
Tammy may murder you for, now saying her 2 top ladies should go to Paris, but
she could still help, she could be on the team. Or not.
How about Sandy Rucker with her glow up on the team? Remember the Ice Diaries?
No.
You've never seen Ice Diaries?
Maybe I have. When was that from?
Stop it. Okay, I'm going to link it to this part. We're now going to see a card, and I'll put it in the end screen in this video. Episodes 1 through 4 include Sandy Rucker. She had left Tammy. This is some sort of like curious. Okay. She was with Tammy, went to Tom, fights with Tom the entire time in the documentary. She looked like she was in her teenage rebellion phase. She was in an injury phase. Now she works with Tammy when Tom is also still on the ice. But this is how we really got to meet Tom Z and know that his voice maybe trails when a skater is irritating him and not working up to their potential. Oh.
All right, I'll watch.
I was rewatching it after the other night, and I was like, Alyssa Cisney, God love her, like the double axel was never her jump. Like the layback perfection, right? Olympic season, 2005, 2006, she's winning Skate Canada, and Ice Diaries is saying, Alyssa Cisney, working on a triple axel with Julie Berlin. I was like, what? Like, basically like, Alyssa, what was your coach smoking? You know, essentially she texted right back, and it was maybe after midnight. Then she texted right back being like, I don't think she knew what she was doing. You know, in that management, we talk about coaches putting more in.
Okay, yeah.
That was
even when we were first hearing Gracie was training her quad sow and her quad lats and a triple axel or something when she first was making her comeback. And we had Alex on the show, and he was like, well, good luck.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, I do think that we need to beef up the pair discipline. I would also seriously consider, yes, bringing back Calla Lang, bringing back Ashley Kane. But listen, they have donors and funds. And yes, they want this money for the long term. But I also think that if we don't pay some money to help incentivize and help some of these top skaters train and work at ways to make money and bring in more sponsorships and do things, that we won't have a sport to save the money for. So I think that they need to balance that. Quite seriously, I think that they really need to. Listen, you can't have one good pair and everyone else. I mean, I thought we might see a serious injury during the pair event. I have to be real. Like that was unsettling.
The pair event was the one that sort of left me the most unsettled as a viewer. And you know that I love Danny's skating. I think he's so talented, and it's just never really been the right situation. But I mean, to offer a throw double loop and then to fall on the throw double Salchow, I know this is the trajectory of their new partnership, but for that to be going to Worlds and to have won bronze and to all this sort of stuff, it's just sort of a statement as to where things are at the moment.
I know that there's a reduced field, so people will place artificially higher. But if imagine his partner, right? She's young, hasn't been to Worlds before, doesn't have his level of experience. She's more than a decade younger than he is, and doesn't have nearly this life experience, skating experience under her. Now she's going to go to a Worlds when they haven't really competed throw triples.
Right.
This could go really wrong.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're not ready for the. Yes, they were top 3 here.
They would be one of the people that could benefit from doing a 4 continents, even though it's such a quick turnaround. I mean, I think
they could benefit from doing a Pacific Coast, from doing a North Atlantic regional, from doing Mid-Atlantics. And that's not to say that they're not going to get there, but I do think that the age is also, it's concerning for a lot of people.
You're on the head afterward. There's something very patronizing sort of about that kind of thing.
Would look at incentivizing Jessica or Ashley or someone to skate with him, or I just don't think that this is or Audrey Shin. At least she's got experience. She has mileage under her. She's been to international competitions. It's more of an even playing field. Remember when Mary Beth Marley teamed up with Rockney? It just was too much after a while. And I think we see this time and time again. I don't know. It's like, he's so great, but also to continue, you want to be better than you were. I don't think that their programs were anything. And I know that they're a first-year team, but
a first-year team that's going to Worlds.
Yeah. I mean, I like the team Barham and I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name right now.
I don't.
Yes, I am on skatingscores.com.
IOUMENTSEV.
Yes.
That one's a puzzler to me.
So yeah, Timochev, but he will be too old for junior and she will be too young for the senior level. But I do think that they have a ton of talent and potential. Hopefully they'll stay together and hopefully they can stay incentivized to keep doing well. They're only going to be able to compete domestically unless something changes or they're allowed to get some sort of special dispensation. I mean, I think this is something in pairs. Maybe we have to ask the ISU to allow pairs to compete because there aren't many pairs in the world anymore. Certainly of quality.
Right.
And they're raising the age. So I don't know if that is even possible.
Yeah. I mean, what was nice to see here is even amidst a rather weak field to see Alexa and Brandon still skate up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting on social media, she credited Mikhail Brezhnev for helping her with the jumps. And these jumps looked solid. I mean, I know it was the triple toe loop, single toe loop, and then the triple salchow, but I mean, from whence we've come, you know, I mean, this was lovely to see.
She did a triple toe in that short program warm-up. That was one of the best jumps I've ever seen her do in her entire career.
And just in general, seems more settled as she begins.
Yeah, I thought their short was great.
Yeah.
They're free to me. The music and the color, to me, not their favorite program that they've done. All season feel that way, but they're great. And I think we'll skate up later, although they aren't going to 4 continents, but that could be smart for them to rest and to be.
I think so as well. You know, I mean, they are not hungry for experience and they are on the older side and very clearly know how to handle and pace themselves and their bodies and things like that. So for that team in particular, it seems to make total sense to me that they would skip out on 4 continents.
And the Japanese team is going to 4 continents, very hungry to win, and they have a longer turnaround time between nationals and they didn't even compete at nationals. So because of the luggage issue, so they will be able to go there. And I think they're putting in some upgrades, Bruno told me. So, but
so that's a smart move for Alexa and Brandon, I think. Yeah.
But for the rest of the pair discipline, really, really just
tough.
They really
internationally too, you know.
And they have to destigmatize pairs in the US. I mean, it's considered such an insult to do pairs in the US, which in Russia, not. Maybe because they control the funding more, but
or they've just had more winners. They've had more icons in that discipline. And, you know, we're still talking about Jenny and Todd. I mean, that was how long ago, you know?
And I don't find that ice dance has that stigma. I mean, ice dance used to have the biggest stigma in the US.
Until we started winning. Until I think it normalizes that this is a legitimate, valid gold medal that these people can get. And I think, I mean, the fact that dance is so much deeper than pairs still confuses me at times from whence we've come, you know, when we first started watching.
I always think, why would you go to another country? If you have the right size and requirements to do pairs, you'd rather be 10 spots away at Nebelhorn than doing pairs where you could be in it.
Right. Or you'd be an Olympian, you know? Yeah.
And a lot of people, once they go to Paris, seem to love it, right? That you either love it or you don't. That's
especially, you know, and Christy talks about this in the interviews, you know, like when you're at your 4th Skate America event, it's hard to be inspired because the newness has worn away. It's become sort of routine. And the idea of you infusing all this new stuff could rejuvenate your interest in the sport in general, I think.
I think that there's a certain reality check with the technical requirements now. If you're not going to have that great triple Lutz, triple toe and have triple axel or quad potential, what are you doing?
Right. Yeah.
And I think you have to be realistic about what the ceiling is.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, that's just what it takes to be to the top in the senior women's event at this point in time. So
Let's talk about that ladies' short program, shall we?
Yeah. That's
Miss
Scott
Bradie-
Brown. Scott Brown,
I
always
was
our
gonna say, Miss Bradie Tennell coming out. There were a lot of comments about the packaging. I actually enjoyed the black and yellow dress. I didn't understand the priest collar. That's where I was like, I don't. But the overall figure it cut with the minimal music, I did see finally a different sort of Bradie that we were being told we were getting when it was clear we were not getting.
it was less boring than we've seen from Bradie in the
I think
past.
this is the nicest short program I've seen from her choreographically. But outrageous under rotations that were so clear even in real time on a television.
I don't know that I've ever enjoyed Bradie's skating because it looks like work.
Yeah. But this looked less like work than her other programs have in the past to me.
Yeah, she seems to enjoy what she's doing more. But her rotations have not been, I mean, since her Olympic season, I knew that she grew taller and things like that, but she has not had strong jump rotation.
Although from what we saw in the fall, this was shocking to me.
Right. I don't remember the last time we saw her do a truly clean triple.
Yeah.
But remember when they called it in 2021 and it was outrageously cheated? This one also appeared outrageously cheated.
Outrageously so. Yeah.
But Scott Brown chose not to do it. And here's the thing is that I often wonder, because in the men's event, Dory called the men's event, who Jenny used to work with, and I often wonder if these callers think that they're doing certain skaters a service by helping them and getting the right people to the top. But I don't think that skaters ever have the chance to
reflect,
improve,
yeah,
unless they do get those tough calls.
Right.
You will never do it if you're like, well, they called it clean here.
Right.
But maybe they're calling it clean there to help you so that you weren't dinged an under rotator.
That's the old Joe Inman giving Johnny that transition mark.
Well, he also pegged him.
I mean, but you know what I mean? But it's sending a message like, you have to work on this.
You know that Marta Carolla used to have a judge sit next to her who gave her what the actual scores were as opposed to the scores that were on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they went by the actual.
Was pulled from this panel as a result. Wasn't he supposed to do the free skate also? And then they said no?
Yes, a couple coaches had words with him. Had words with Mitch over this. And rightfully so, but they replaced Gracie's choreographer with someone from her hometown who's, the thing is that there's a lot of groupthink that happens. And if you go to skatingscores.com and you start to look at some of the individual components and the rankings, the judge from Chicago had Bradie first in the free, I believe.
That blew my mind. Yeah.
I mean, and are they going to allow these people to judge again? I mean, that's patently wrong, right?
On the flip side, 4 judges had Amber second over Bradie.
But David Santee also called her triple toe clean in the free, and it was performed exactly the same way. So does that change anything? Right. I mean, it's still unfair. And the thing is, it hurts certain skaters. I don't think it necessarily changed who the top 3 would have been, but what does it do to a skater's mindset when you are seeing who they're posting on social media? And it was all about Bradie's comeback, which is interesting because when we saw her in the fall, she did not look strong.
No, I did not know these 2 performances were possible based on what we saw in the fall.
But they went all in on Bradie on Instagram and the Team USA articles, and right, like they made that comeback a storyline here. And she did wind up, proving them right. But how did they know that? Right. And when was this decided? Because the team felt predetermined to me. And maybe Nationals always has an element. I mean, if you read John Jackson's book, he talks about them, talking all week. But this felt like maybe even earlier. Mm-hmm. But I mean, they do watch practices. I mean, that's all anyone talks about at a skating event. You're not talking about the war in Ukraine, right? You're
talking about the buzz of how it's going to go. Yeah.
And everything feels so important and so huge, right? When you're all the buzz and all the chatter. But when you look at it, what does it do to a Lindsay if you're going to see, yes, her jumps were under, but so were Bradie's. So we're
not to defend Tom Z, but his issue with Vincent always was not that Vincent was called. He was like, if you have a tough caller, that's one thing, but the tough caller then has to call it across the board, not selectively.
Yeah.
And that is confusing. If you have a nice caller and everybody's getting sort of that extra bump and not getting called with the under, that's one thing. But when it seems cherry-picked, who is judged honestly on those things and who is not, you've got a real problem.
You kind of expect, like, yes, you could say it's a nationals bump, but you would anticipate it's going to be tougher at nationals, right? Then
yeah,
this is the tough competition. You have to bring your best stuff. So I was definitely confused by Bradie's scores.
Yeah.
Well, it's US figure skating. I wasn't confused. I was disappointed, not surprised.
Yeah.
Is what I would say.
Okay.
And it just felt like it was like a coronation, right? In certain marks that really got overly high.
Yeah.
And Ilia Malinin clearly, to the naked eye, didn't rotate all of his quads. They were all called clean in the free skate.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting, because again, when we talk to Christy, she talks about where the focus is on the.
He did get a cue on the axle. I'm sorry, he got a cue on the axle, but his other quads not called.
But it was clear because then Ilia was telling us their main focus going into this was to clean up the short program.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they accomplished that, but there was also a free skate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was clear that the work they put into the short program paid off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why he changes costumes every 2 seconds. That would throw me.
And none of them are aesthetically pleasing.
One was just the one that was like the plain shirt with color on it, and then
it looked like he was in a bowling league. I didn't understand.
Yeah, kind of had a 50s. Remember when Jason did? He had was that Simon and Garfunkel when he had like the blue and the white stripe on the black? It had that energy to it.
With Ilia, it almost feels like a Simone Biles situation to a degree, where they're letting the hype, the self, in some aspects, self-imposed, anointing himself the quad god, right? Which is interesting and a talking point, but then putting 6 quads in the free, hadn't won a nationals before. Obviously not the way you want to win your first nationals. It just feels like a miscalculation.
Well, I mean, I appreciated afterwards, he was saying like, yeah, we rolled the dice. We tried a new thing and it didn't pay off and they learned from it. And actually, if you are Ilia and knew there was very little that was going to be possible in order for you not to win this event, was this not the event to actually try something new and use it just sort of as a testing ground before Worlds?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's a shame that Four Continents isn't a little bit later. I know that they want to build his fan base in Europe and it's money coming in, potentially damaging to your reputation if you're facing the other skaters right before the World Championships. It's just a major loss for the USFS, and maybe he does need another competition, but I mean, what he does, I think, technically is so challenging that would be really you need to come down for when you're attempting them.
Yeah. But what was surprising to me was for Four Continents, it did not look like Torgashev was assigned. And
well, he has to go to another competition to get a technical minimum. Because
for Worlds, he has to do that even for Four Continents?
Yeah, there's a Four Continents minimum too.
I see. Because I thought to myself, well, why wouldn't Four Continents be that testing ground? But I guess you need it for there as well. Okay.
Isn't it a lower threshold? He's going to a competition before this. He has to go and get a minimum score. Either it's conflicting, but I think you do need a minimum. Like there's a minimum to go to Europeans.
Okay. Okay, then it would, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, what a moment for him. Because I remember being so enthralled with his skating a couple years ago and then struggling and then sort of going off the scene for a while. And I know he had the fall on the quad in the short, but the rest of the program and jumps were beautiful. And to see what he did in the free skate, winning the free skate, everybody basically getting the same score in the top 3 there. It was really lovely. It was really lovely because I enjoy his skating. I enjoy his extension. The jumps were looking nice. It was just, that was a nice feel-good moment that I wasn't expecting, quite honestly.
I apologize for texting, but I don't want to misspeak and have everyone in the comments attack me. Like, Jonathan, when you said that someone hadn't been to Georgia and the person we predicted would jump over it.
I was just repeating what was said on the broadcast, and that was said on the broadcast, that she in an interview had said that.
Listen, I just texted 3 skaters, one who Tarasova may be called ugly today, and we're going to see who texted back about to confirm the 4 continents and Euros minimums situation. I'll text
okay. It's all happening live.
She confirmed. Yes, she was the first one. Megan Duhamel. Yes, that is what Torgashev is not going. I was right. Listen, Jonathan, sometimes you know things, but then you're like, wait, I need to Google to double check, right? Like, that's my training.
Yeah.
And when you're speaking directly and not anticipating that you were going to ask me that question, my mind went, yes. And I haven't looked what the minimum was lately because it wasn't particularly relevant to anyone that we typically talk about. So I wasn't.
Go with your gut.
Yes. Oh man. I just saw the comments before my very eyes being like, you idiots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very offended if there's a misspoken moment. But the Jason Short program for me, because this we had not seen, this was a moment. Held positions, took their time. It was just everything you want to see. And what about those jumps in the short? Loved it. Well, the
combo maybe a little questionable in the combo.
Right. But the axel and the solo jump just start, and just the spins, and you can tell when someone's coming into their own as a person, I feel, on the ice. And that's actually what I would like to say about Amber Glenn as well, is Amber Glenn appeared to me as more of an adult, more in her body, just like in general, that I felt a settled feeling from her at this event, and it was nice to see. So.
So they're valid for 2 seasons. Someone else, a second skater, sent me what they are for the technical minimums, okay? And they are lower than the world's. I was right, okay? And there's also a minimum for the World Juniors. So for the men, for the Europeans, or 4 continents, the short program is a 28. It's a 25 for the women. It's a 25 for pairs. And ice dance for the rhythm dance, it's a 28. In the free, it's a 46 for the men. It is a 42 for the women. It is a 42 for pairs and a 45 for dance. Worlds, it's higher. Men have to get a 34. So it goes from a 28 to a 34. Women, a 32. So it goes up by 7. It goes up by 6 in the men, but this is so arbitrary. Okay, this makes sense. Okay.
I know.
Wait a second. Why are women having to give you 7 points more, but men giving 6? Like, what?
That's weird.
There's a lower point range in women's.
Yeah. Huh.
Maybe because there are more women, so they want to like thin the fat.
The numbers even going up. Strange. Okay.
Pairs, it's a 29. And ice dance, a 33. For the free skate, men is 64, women 53. Pairs, 46, ice dance, 49. I asked a skater that this would be really relevant too. So I kind of
so they were on it. Yeah.
On it. Okay. Yeah. You have to know who to ask. That is the key thing for journalism.
Yeah, I was just then comparing on skating scores the technical numbers that our pairs were receiving in the free.
What were they getting?
Well, so they could still go, actually, because you said the cutoff for the pairs free technical was what?
Yeah, well, Jonathan, but the nationals doesn't count towards the.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these are right in the 40s, you know. Okay. Fascinating.
Oh. Amber Glenn, so I would have had her ahead of Bradie overall at this competition. Certainly in the free skate, I thought that it was not judged correctly there. Bradie does have more speed and flow, but the big double Lutz at the end was really not it. For me, I just thought that Amber has more sincerity in her performance, and that for me, I would reflect that in the components.
Yeah. And Josephine Lee, what a moment in the free skate. It was so lovely to see. Yeah, finishing.
She was coming up. She was in the junior event last year.
Right.
She had a Don Quixote program. I really like this skater.
Shame, because she had a rough short program fall. Yes. But to see her come back and give such a beautiful free skate was really nice to see.
And I thought Starr was phenomenal in the short program.
She really stepped it up in the short. Yeah, it was a shame about the long.
Yeah. But not having been in that situation before, hopefully we'll learn from it and improve for next season. I really liked her. Now, what was your take on Grace? So Gracie was really disappointed with her score after the short program. And I don't know, I was confused by that.
You know, obviously a huge sentimental favorite for everyone. Yes. And there's such a desire to want to see her do well. For me, there's an inherent lack of speed and flow in the program. That's, I understand, but it can't really be compared to those above her. So I don't know, did she want more GOE, or she thought her PCS was too low?
I was imagining both, but certainly the PCS. But here's the thing about that, is that she doesn't perform with as much speed or agility as she did, or face, as she did 2016, 2015, her heyday, right? She's still phenomenal.
Of course.
Best job, right? She does go for the flip, which they gave her the exclamation point in nationals, and they are selective about this, so I understand. But she has had that flip issue her entire career. Remember Frank talking about it when she first went there. I don't understand the component. The other thing is that she did do really well in the short program. But we do know that skating is not just judged in one competition. And if you're in the game, you accept this, right? And she did go out many times, and she did well at Skate America, but didn't put both programs together.
Right.
And then went to the competition in Austria and really didn't perform well right after. And it kind of killed that momentum that she had. And she's been dealing with an injury, but she also didn't skate well in the practice here, especially the one that was on Peacock. And then people were sending clips when they're popping. So the judges do talk and kind of decide where they think you're going to slot in. And, this is a perception-based sport. So.
And she confirmed that then in the free by doing double lutz, single lutz, double toe, all of this.
Yeah. They want to help her, though. They do want her to do well.
Yeah.
But she might not feel that. But I think the thing is that she has to do well more often to get those marks, to build that back up, because it's been so long, right? Yeah. It's been so long since she was that top skater.
And part of the thrill, I'm sorry to say, in the short program is that she actually landed the combo. Do you know what I mean? There's also an element of, we didn't know if that was possible.
Well, I thought it was an impressive. It looked like maybe she was a little off on the landing of the lutz. And she then, really did a great triple toe. And the flip was great. I mean, it was thrilling and it was phenomenal. I wanted her to do well in the free. It's just... Yeah, I think that she would have to do well more times to get the higher scores here, just based on how skating rolls.
Well, and I think Johnny was saying that she had said in an interview that she doesn't want to view this as like, look at me, I'm coming back. She wants to actually be here and arrived and a threat, but it still has that sort of like underdog Elaine Zayak 94 energy to it.
Well,
except Elaine skated cleaner and was fourth. Yeah.
Listen, when she was at the top and won nationals, she also won the practices both times.
Right.
She did a free skate. I remember the first day we were taking videos, and she did I think she popped one jump every other, it was one mistake, but everything else was phenomenal. Full spins, full footwork, didn't stop, right? Paulina skated through all the jumps, did the Russian kind of like strategy. And you knew there that she was in top form and really confident.
Well, and as we talk about with Christy later, it's so much indicative of the training going into it and what is reliable. And then, as she was saying, if something goes wrong when the practices and the training has gone right, then you're dealing with a mental issue. But if you're sending the message that the training has been a little off, the practices are a little off, this is a hard bet to get behind.
Yeah. And I do think that the judges probably counted Lindsay out because she didn't have
The fall.
the fall.
The autumn. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Lindsay needs more speed to become more dynamic. I think that they've made strides, but they need to really work on that and then figure out how to get those jumps around. Yeah. Because she's inherently an athlete, right? That works on presentation, but I think that they need to pick really smart music. Maybe let Nina pick it, right? And really find what.
But it's interesting. I mean, I thought it was interesting when we had Elena on and we were talking about Mishin and like why Mishin wouldn't have, you know, how does Mishin have a Kolyada on, you know, one part of the rink and then a Semenenko doing his skating skills on the other end of the rink. And she was like, you just got to, she felt that Mishin just saw what they could do and went with it. Mm-hmm. And so everyone talks about how Lindsay has this athletic ability, but the whole time it seems like the obsession has been about dressing it up and making it more elegant. But I think but what she's lost in that is her being the athlete. Like if she just leaned into like, forget the artistry at the moment, I'm just going to be the consistent athlete, it would send the athlete message and she would still be getting those technical points. But
well, the other thing is they have to be realistic about which jump she's doing, which they did pull back some of the triples, which was smart. They spent a lot of time with Lindsay on the triple axel this year, which I don't think is likely what should be the priority right now when she has struggled with a clean triple for the last couple of years. Yeah. And even like, you know, sometimes the loop was called under, or sometimes the sow could be under. I think that would be where to probably put the focus because the triple axel seems like it's still a ways off. Yeah. So I think they need to really organize that situation and figure out what they want to do. And Christy Ness also said the skater has to really want it, right? And that, I mean, the skater has to be really also kind of co-driving this with the coach to be really successful. Right. So I think that if Lindsay really does want it, then those would be the kind of things, because I think she's completely capable. And the thing is, she's already grown, right? She's already taller compared to 2 years ago. Absolutely. So I think that they can start to make those adjustments.
What's interesting is I think the same of Ilia. Actually, what's been fascinating is to me, he seems taller than he was at Nationals last year. Mm-hmm. And for him to be now adding all of this instead of just navigating that is crazy impressive also, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
I do think a lot of these skaters have weak training habits and compared to what they need to when it comes to training the programs.
And it's so funny when there's a tried, like they know what could help it. Like it could take so much mystery out of that competitive equation if you know how to do this. I remember talking about this with Megan. She was like, this seems like a no-brainer. You know that if you do those run-throughs, you will do better. So it's such a fascinating hang-up that doesn't seem to be done all the time. And you can tell the athletes at the end that could keep going. And you know the athletes at the end that barely made it.
It's interesting doing like self-love meditation and working on that meta kind of thing. You'll also read things and hear like that your subconscious already knows what you need to do to heal yourself, right? Yeah. I think most of these skaters probably know what they need to be doing to do that.
Yeah.
If they really dig deep.
Yeah.
Because I thought that there were some really alarming performances in the free where you could, that's training.
With the men or with the women?
Both, right? Certainly the women's free was a poorly skated event.
Yes.
And I think a lot of those skaters probably aren't training the way that they need to be. And you can kind of see it reflected in the performances. You know, if you do the training every day, you will inherently be more confident. And then that will hopefully translate over into competition. Right. I think some of these skaters, not the most disciplined in the training. And even though they were, and I think for some of the skaters, it's hard with the ones that are super talented that can get by as they're coming up, not working as harder as others, because then when they struggle, they don't know how to grit it out and strive the same way and struggle.
Yeah.
And I think we do see that a lot too.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's really important, like the discipline, but then also the parents that move them from coach to coach to coach to coach, and also create a lot of the problems too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that consistency is really important. What do you think of the men? I mean, I thought it was thrilling for the men that to see Naumov and Torgashev step up, because the men have needed them to do so. Coming in, I wasn't shocked to see Camden skate as he did, considering that he's adjusting to college and what his overall career has kind of looked like.
And it's like actually going to college, isn't just at home in the same rink doing kind of college, like we have heard some skaters do in the past, is actually relocated. It's actually, yeah.
And Chelsea Piers is more of a recreational rink for adult skaters or people taking lessons, but it's not as intense as the Colorado Springs, right? And he's going to Columbia. I think it's, you know, tough, you know, is what I said. So I interested to think that he has said that on the broadcast, they had mentioned him going all in next year. What you think?
So then I thought, oh, is now he pulling back again? I mean, it's because he had obviously so much momentum to ride last season, but maybe his plans were already in place. But I mean, with that momentum, I think he could have really kept going and done a thing. But that wasn't the life priority at the moment, which fair enough.
Yeah, I just think he had, I'm not surprised. Like, comparing that he had the performances of his life last season and seemed to have really gotten it together for the Worlds. He had a good skate at Nationals. But seeing him earlier in the season, I mean, he was working harder, you could tell, but it wasn't all coming together. And then to see him kind of slide back, it's not a shock, right? With that, like, has he maxed out? I think is the real question. I mean, he's super talented, but he's never had like the real spin.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be great for US figure skating if he continues, but you know, Torgashev, Naumov, younger, tons of talent there, but they've also been up and down and injured and all the things.
So much excitement for me in the Torgashev performance. I was really, I mean, obviously Jason, I expected it from Jason. I did not know to expect it from Torgashev.
So, and you said that you like the Jason Short program. For me, it's the free program this year. I
it's
thought
so emotional and beautiful. And I hate that it was at the end of Europeans and you were like, all we need from US Nationals is for Ilia to land the quad axel tomorrow and for Jason to land the triple flip. And neither happened. And it was right. It threw that whole momentum. If he had done that, one, he would have won. But of course, by that token,
excuse me, people will argue this. If quads were called correctly, if components were scored accurately, remember, because he did not get all 10s in the components, although
I don't know what else you're looking for then. I don't know what else any skater could give you in the components in that men's free skate.
People will argue this to the end of the time. I think if both things were right, there's a lot of ifs there. But I thought that he was having a Lyra Angelica moment. You know, Michelle's program in 99, I thought was so striking, and she was having it in a different, like a nationals moment in a different way, and she just booms down in the last triple Lutz. Yeah. And I still rewatched that program. I just wish she landed it because it would have been one of the great moments of all time. I really think that what he was doing artistically and in terms of transitions, where you don't know what's the step sequence and what's just a transition into a jump, right? Certain points. I do think that Christy Ness mentions that he was maybe tired. I mean, that program is extremely difficult.
It's exhausting, more than some of these quad programs where then they're basically resting during the choreography and Jason is working even harder. Yeah.
You know, he had an ankle injury that they hit last year, like over the summer. I think he'd broken it, right? And he was not at full strength last year. And when we criticized him, people ate us in the comments for it. But I think he looks so much physically stronger and his technique looks so much better. His jump landings are phenomenal. His jumps look stronger than they've ever looked in his entire career. I mean, Tracy knows how to throw a puff into the air, but when she told Lynn Rutherford that the shows have been helping him, I mean, I think she's right. His confidence is at another level.
He just looks, again, is so at ease and there to share skating with people, you know, and it was exactly what he did. And I mean, I'll never get enough of the spins or the spin position.
And new spins.
Yeah, yeah.
He changed his spins because he had done the same spins for years.
Right, which were gorgeous, but expected then, yeah.
He was going up and down in the sit. I mean, staying on an outside edge on the camel. I mean, it was phenomenally cool, like levels of quality. Yeah. His GOE, I do not think was even high enough compared to what they score at this event. Just. So
you would advise him to what? Ditch the jumping element after the knee slide in general, get rid of the knee slide, switch the jump that he does out of the knee slide?
No, maybe not.
Because it looked gorgeous in the practice.
Let's be real. He was doing shows in Japan with Daisuke. He was doing shows in the fall. How much time has he really had to train before he's competed at these international events? With enough run-throughs, getting in the best shape possible for Worlds, should this be that he wants to create a moment, I think that he can deliver this. I think he would have been the most popular, famous person in America today had he landed that flip. I think that program would have been an iconic moment of sports. He would have gone viral, I think as big as Riverdance, but in a more profound adult way. I think it would have like bookended his career. It felt like we were watching that until the last flip. And it wound up being still a phenomenal program, right? Still,
of course, yeah.
But it was, to me, it was better than Riverdance. To me, it was profound. It was,
and the quality was even deeper. Yeah, 100%.
It didn't even matter that the crowd wasn't as big as it could have been. It was the best skating. I think I was getting sad afterwards. I was like, you know, I don't know that we're ever going to see another program like that.
Yeah, that much heart, just on the
that much quality of the edges. I mean, you think Patrick Chan, Jeff, like.
But somehow when Patrick was showing you those incredible skating skills, I didn't have the emotional response I was having to this. It was emotional. It was
this had everything. This was like Paul Wiley, but deeper even. I don't know. This was just incredible.
More complexity, that's for sure. Yeah.
Way somehow deeper than his Schindler's List, and phenomenal. And I was, oh my God, like the world needed him to land that damn. And he did lose points on the last spin because he wobbled it a bit. So,
but again, the GOE for that all over the map. Some gave a level 1, or some gave a +1, and some gave a +5. I mean, even with the wobble, it's still
the position was just incredible. So it was just like, but I felt, I don't know. I thought Biden would have been calling him today had he done it. Oprah tweeting. Did Josh Groban tweet at him yet? I mean, like that kind of a moment.
Yeah.
Having seen people go viral for gymnastics performances, he had the ingredients there.
And again, knew that there was an audience he was performing to and drew us in. It was magic. It wasn't that don't look at me, I'm concentrating.
His choreography is so much more complex and he's so much freer and more confident. I do think the shows are making him better. And I think if marketed correctly, he could become an Elage with the right agent behind him, with the right social media.
Yeah.
He could be huge.
Yeah.
I don't think he has the right people before. He's getting a lot of great opportunities, but I think he could be huge because of what he inherently has that is so special.
Yeah.
I also think Papadakis and Cizeron, if they played social media better, they could also, but they seem like they are above it. You know,
which is also kind of why I love them, but yeah.
Above it and not. I mean, Guillaume's also like posting that picture in his robe, you know, like they're in it and not. So
yeah, okay. Okay. But speaking of dance, this
also Jimmy Ma turned the event around because it was a splat fest until Jimmy Ma came out. Although the Claire de Lune with the hip hop ending, a strange choice for me when he didn't give us that in Swan Lake, but I digress. It was just,
it was still a nice moment for him. And again, like you said, got the crowd revved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about dance. Tell me about the dance.
This one made me irate. I am such a fan of Zingis and Kolesnik.
Yeah.
That free skate was that her extension is stunning. And she was the one that used to come from singles. I just loved everything about it. To me, it was utterly criminal that they were in fourth place and now left off of everything. Like, this is where four continents can help you as a federation to be like, we had this 3 and 4, they were pretty close. I say send 3 to one and send 4 to another one. So I wish they could have gone to 4 continents, something like this. I just was so drawn into their performance. I liked them as a team. And something about Carrera and Ponomarenko were seeming so stale to me and so labored and so not.
Christina's much better than he is at this point.
Yeah,
I know he had an ankle injury, and he's always been strong, but he doesn't have the skating ability.
No, it looked labored, and then to see again Zingis and Kolesnik just like flying and extending and performing, I was like, I don't know how there's even a question here. I'm gonna go to the overall judges.
I really feel like U.S. ice dance has quietly been falling off a little bit, and without Hawaii and Baker here, it felt like there were real holes. I see a lot. I thought this last year too in the penultimate group, and the Jeffrey Chen and Wilkinson, Ian Somerville and his part. Like, I don't know that I see that the right skaters are with the right partners. It looks like overall there's a lack of imagination.
Everybody's settling to middle. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, this Michigan dance school, nothing is wrong, but to me, I don't see an artistic point of view. And it's interesting because Charlie and Merrill, when I look back, they were the best skaters, but they didn't really have that kind of chemistry that we thought of with ice dance. It was almost a little bit sterile, right? Yeah. And that was almost their brand. They were like the good kids, right? But not exciting. And then Charlie looks like he's really leading this choreographic. And it's interesting because
I don't know why it wouldn't be Tanith. I find her so interesting.
But she doesn't, like, she's like lost some of her glam in the kiss and cry. I don't know. Like, Charlie is the star here between them. And I'm like, yeah, he has the gold medal, but Tanith is the star. Like, she's the speaker. She's gorgeous.
She's got a silver. She's close enough. And she's brilliant. And she's wonderful.
Yeah, but she seems to let Charlie be the star.
Interesting on many levels.
I don't know. Like, he's this, like, they... Right. I mean,
what frustrates me is as a fan of theirs. I like Green and Parsons. I like them the minute they debuted, and when they were debuting, however many years ago that was, they were doing interesting things and they were setting themselves apart. And I personally will always be on the record that I disagreed with the Olympic assignments. I love Jean-Louis, but I really thought Green and Parsons should have gone, and their program was unique and it was different and they were trying to do something and it just wasn't rewarded. So I think they jumped ship and now just kind of like sold out and went total generic. And I was disappointed because I wanted to see more of where they could have gone creatively, and they were on a creative path and they took themselves out of it and became totally overly.
They had other programs though before they left Virginia, and I liked those programs more because we were watching it on Live Barn because that's when Diana was there and we were breaking that.
Right.
So
I don't know what happened, and I think it's that vision for them is not as interesting as it was.
It's not. I don't know. Charlie's aesthetic in ice dance of just having the guy in the t-shirt with the button down open always, so it looks like they're getting more air, covering more space. We saw Ian do it last year. Both programs. We see Jeffrey Chen do it this year. I'm bored of the aesthetic.
And I mean, that's the other thing. Sometimes when certain skaters come up in an era, they're still in it. And I think there's a desire to replicate what worked for him instead of seeing who's in front of him. And he has
he's new to this, right? They are ultimately inexperienced as coaches, right? Greg has coached for a long time, but this whole school together, and they got thrown 3 top teams, right? And now they have to produce.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there was enough time to think through individuality and point of view, and I think they will learn from this.
I actually thought the McNamara Spiridonov free dance was much more interesting than all three of the Michigan programs, because again, at least they were trying to say something.
Well, I thought Green and Parsons did that program last year, but
fair enough. I guess
in a different color. I don't understand the red for that program. Also, I don't know, the presentation was a little Krylova over the top at the end, but yeah, I feel bad because it just seems like McNamara can't get ahead in this. Yeah. The other thing, I thought that the free dance was such a miss for Green and Parsons. And I noticed she's hunching her shoulders more this year than last. And we talk about the size difference that the girl will sometimes do that when the boy.
Like with the Italians. Yeah. Yeah.
I notice it with her. And the costume didn't help, especially in the rhythm dance. So, yeah, I don't know.
But now what I can say is that Chock and Bates have
I just want to say, wait.
Yeah.
Green Parsons we saw them go from Prince to this avant-garde to this schlock. Like, look at the trajectory. They're interesting, and then it's...
Well, and sometimes you have to give sort of this more sort of obvious kind of program to people that can't do the other, but we've seen that they can do the other. That's the luxury, is to have them do the other. So it seemed like such a step backwards. Yeah. Artistic.
Yeah. It was very Western, but not...
They were getting mixed messaging because, again, they did something interesting and it didn't pan out for them that Olympic season when I thought it should have. So
Mike and Baker's free dance was like the performance of nationals last year.
Yeah.
I don't know. In my opinion, it was. I thought that they were scored maybe a little generously in the rhythm dance, but they had that mistake. I don't know. I thought that it was a close call, but I do think that I thought Hawaii and Baker did earn it by that much last year, but I don't think that that's why they switched coaches. But
I see. Okay. But I mean, it adds insult to injury to then not even have this fourth place dance team go to something like Four Continents.
Yeah, well, these teams all three are going, right?
Yeah.
So that's why that is.
But,
yeah. What did you, I don't know. Where do you see the potential for all the teams? You were going to talk about Chock and Bates. So where do you see their potential for the season?
Well, it's fascinating. Now, of course, we have to see what's happened with Piper and Paul off of the ice. But while Piper and Paul have been off of the ice, and they came out like blazing this season, they showed us that program and continue to deliver that program. What's been interesting about Chock and Bates is it started, and it's even still, it's not as interesting as I might have hoped, but what they have continued to do is to make it more interesting each time they go out. The theme becomes more clear to me each time they go out. The energy behind it, that move where she is in the split and rotate, get out of here. There are some real wow moments in this program, and it's sort of getting more fire, because it's fire and ice. There's more fire in the program than I thought could be there with this material. So they're on a real upswing. I think they're closer now to winning than I ever thought they would be this season.
Well, there are elements, so like that split. Individually, I think the elements, some of them much higher GOE potential than
the extension and just the overall wow factor of those rotational lifts and all that sort of stuff.
Piper does not have the extension that Madison Chock has.
Right. Very few do, actually. Yeah.
The skating skills, we can get into a debate, right?
But I don't know that one team is so far ahead of the other.
Right. I think in cohesion, Piper and Paul's program was cohesive. To me, I still think Chock, both pieces of music, I think could go back to Hugo for a boost for a couple rounds of edits. The free just misses the mark for me.
Yeah, it's still not what I would have chosen, but they keep getting more out of it each outing they have. Like the first time I really noticed it was at the Grand Prix final. To me, the program in general had taken a giant step forward, and here it took another giant step forward. But I think it's going to take another giant step forward before it goes to Worlds.
Yeah, I just find the music is a little flat when it need. We talked to music ending on a down. I don't know. It needs to rouse to a finish for me, and it doesn't.
Yeah. Although it has that final like expirate, like that air thing that happens at the end. It's kind of artsy, but I think they could rev up or club up the rhythm dance music a little bit more. It's almost got like an Instagram filter over it, right? Like it's like kind of like muted in a way it doesn't vibrantly resonate as it could.
I think both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both feel muted to me.
Yeah. But what is not muted are the isolated elements, which are great.
Yeah.
That split, dear Lord. That,
and I say that because I would like to see them maximize their potential. I mean, I thought it was interesting that people were throwing snakes on the ice for them because that program.
I was just going to bring that, and it was a cute one, and she like wore it around her. But I was like, no one a couple of years from now is going to throw you a stuffed animal of fire and ice.
Yes,
that's what I mean by it. Yeah.
The other programs were fine. Right? Yeah. Hawaii and Baker, I'll be curious if they do deliver and come to Worlds and what happens there.
Yeah, it was clear then based on the four continents, we were unsure whether they were going to try to go to that or just wait it out till Worlds. And it seems clear, obviously, from the four continent selections, they're going to wait till Worlds.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So what was your moment of nationals?
I mean, there were some real highlights. For me, seeing, I have to keep looking up the name so I don't mess it up. I thought Josephine Lee had such a lovely moment. I thought that this Zingis Kolesnik free dance was a real moment. I thought Torgashev was a moment. But for me, even though obviously I got very emotional during Jason's free skate, I'm going to say Jason's short program.
I'm going to say Jason overall, weak in practice.
I will go with that too. Just Jason, remember?
And I thought the juniors gave me hope for the future. But I have to say, once again, we talk about how I think that Mitch and Justin need to be requiring skaters to, send in full programs to get funding. And I think that they need to keep up requirements to drum up the training and the simulated pressure environments. Because I think overall, the performance, especially in the women's event, in the pairs event, the performance was, and they need to raise that standard. And I think it's on them to do it for their jobs.
Yeah.
Also, like, maybe they could have paid Hubble and Donahue to come back too for a little more excitement in the dance event.
Although, she seems to be diving in deep to the coaching.
Yeah, but listen, if USFS was going to pay you top dollar to come back, you might think a little different.
Yeah.
Listen, I think competition is exciting. And what it felt like in all four disciplines is that we knew who the winner was going to be ahead of time.
Right.
So.
Hold an edge on looks. No, but for real, stay in because the Christy Ness interview is fascinating. And I think is speaking very much to all the points that you just made. Yeah.
Hold an edge, it looks sexy, everybody. Bye now. Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer. And what I love about our special guest today is she got an unwritten memo that we're all going to wear blue sweaters. This is
this is actually gray.
Oh, okay.
This is gray and has some stripes on it. So,
well, we're thrilled to welcome three-time Olympic coach of Olympic champion Christy Yamaguchi, Christy Ness. Welcome to the skating lesson.
Thank you so much.
Well, the Nationals were actually in your hometown, so I thought who better to have on the show. What did you think of Nationals this year?
Oh, I thought it was exciting. I thought the U.S. actually has more depth than I thought it did. I think there's a tremendous amount of depth. A lot of skaters are doing the same jumps, so then it's up to the coach and choreographer to make everybody look original and different. But I thought there was quite a bit of depth. The men yesterday was really great. It went, I mean, people are doing, the first group was good. The second group was good. The third group, of course, was fantastic, but it was really enjoyable to see.
Now, did you have as many male students? You're known for female students. Did you have kind of an equal mix as a coach? Or
I had some. I mean, I had my first national champion was a male. It was, and so I had, let's see, Craig, I don't think won, but Cameron Berkey won novice. And then I had a Canadian world team member, Marcus Christensen. At the same time, I had Susan Humphreys.
Oh, that's
in Canada. And I had other male skaters too in between. I don't keep track. You know, it was a while ago. The Olympics was a while ago. And I've had kind of a separate life since then. Now I'm getting back into skating. I'd like to get back into consulting again. I like to consult kids and skaters and help them, you know, help packaging or help just give them some advice. And I worked at the developmental camp.
Yeah. What do you think your biggest strength is as a coach?
I'm sorry?
What do you think your biggest strength is as a coach?
As a coach, ability to spot what needs to be fixed.
Okay.
You know, the observant part of it, the ability to see movement. I think with a coach, and I talked about this at the National Development Camp with the coaches, consistency. I think consistency has to be there as a coach. You know, that's the only thing with being a consultant. You have to work with the coach, because otherwise you come in and you're like a one-hit wonder. You know, you come in and you're the new person one time, but you don't make an impact, especially on a child. You have to have that consistency. So I really like when I've done consulting and have the coach with me or close by, so I can say, this is what we went over, this is what we worked on, this is how I would fix it, this is how I put it back together, this is the steps.
Well, I talked to Robbie Walia about how
oh my gosh,
Christy, and he said that she would do her long program run through every morning twice and then do it a third time without music. So what is your strategy on long program run throughs, training? How many programs do you like, etc.?
It depends on the skater. And that's why you have private lessons. You have private coaching, you have private tutorials and training and everything else. Everybody is different, but there is a certain common denominator. You know, this is first of all, skating is a rehearsal sport. Every single part of it can be rehearsed. It's not where you're not on a football field, somebody's going to tackle your ankles before you go for your triple axel. You have free reign, you know what you've got. It's a complete rehearsal. And so it's just like in piano. How many times does a pianist do a piece? Over and over and over and over until it gets right. And you need that. There is fatigue involved, but there's fatigue with a lot of things. There's mental fatigue with piano or fatigue with your hands or anything. But I heard a seminar by Barbara Ann Scott quite a few years ago, and I didn't know what she was going to be like. Well, she was an excellent speaker, but she, in 1948, her coach had her doing double run-throughs in 1948. And my feeling is, if you haven't, you know, that at least can be a given. I mean, I think you have to be able to, it's like how do a 4-minute program is like a mile, isn't it? Or like a good miler, okay, a good miler, but it's like a mile. How do they train? Do they just run 4 minutes? No, they run almost as much as a marathoner if you look at their training schedules. And it helps to have, you know, my husband helped a lot in developing I'd already had the double run-throughs. Christy grew up with that, thinking that was just expected, and it wasn't something really different for her. It wasn't, oh my gosh, I have to do the program a second time. She just kind of did it. And so it became an automatic thing. It wasn't a big deal. My husband was the one that came into skating from track and field, you know, and from rugby and from field sports and swimming, and said, well, you have a 2-minute program and a 4-minute. Isn't that like a half mile and a mile? And how do they train? You know, I looked at it a different way than, you know, than just being somebody just from skating would look at it.
It's interesting because at this nationals, pardon me, we do see a lot of great skaters like just on the brink of doing something great. And sort of as a fan on the outside, sort of the mixed messaging is when they're on, they're so good, but it's not always a reliable sort of on. Do you find that basically boils down to the training, or in your experience, is that more of like a mental thing that comes unexpected to them in the moment of being under the competition?
Not knowing them and not seeing how they work. It's a little bit of I can't say definitively this is what it is, but I would say the training gets you through. And I had talked to the skaters at the developmental camp, and I said, what you're trying to do is get your technique so good and be in such good condition that even if you're, you know, your heart's thumping and your legs are shaking together, you can hit your jumps. You may not be pretty, you may not look great, but you at least hit the elements. And that's where the training comes in. I think it really helps. You can at least hit your elements. They may not be your best. I mean, out of a lifetime of skating, I don't think you have a handful of performances that felt effortless. Most of them feel like a job. You have to go out and work at it. Even though it's a rehearsal, you still have to go out and work at it. You hit a few performances where you really hit the zone and you feel like you haven't had to try at all. It just, everything came together. But that's from hours and hours and hours and hours of work behind that. And I know, Bonnie Blair, the speed skater, Paul Wally told me about an Olympic conference they were together at. And he said that they were talking about how many times you're in the zone, the zone being where you don't feel like you have to try, where you're just completely concentrated, you're just completely in the moment. And they went around the table and everybody said, oh, I remember it a couple times or 4 times or whatever. And Bonnie kind of looked just dumbfounded and said, I feel like I'm in the zone every time. Well, that's why she won.
Yeah, lucky her. Yeah.
Yeah, and she had the training behind her. I mean, again, I don't know her. I met her, but I don't know her personally, didn't watch her train speed skating, but she must have been completely trained and completely able to be in the zone that much. It is difficult. And everybody feels different. And some days you just don't feel as good. And what if it's the Worlds and you have to go out and skate? What if you had a cold? What if you've been sick? I mean, now with COVID, they don't let them even, it's more stringent, but still you want to try to get out there if it's your one shot, right, and give it something. So you've got this training behind you, then it can sustain you longer.
Because then my question also becomes, sometimes at these nationals, we see a lot of people under rotating or 2-footing a little bit more, which I sort of understand must be something mental, maybe something's a little tighter in the moment. But what also intrigues me is the popping that we see. So in your experience, is the popping, it's always been described to us through commentators as like the body's taking over and you have no choice but to pop. And I used to sort of compare it to, like, in opera, there will be people that crack.
Yeah,
if the voice is cracking, there's a technical reason that's happening.
Right.
I was just curious to get your take on that, because, for instance, we do see, especially a lot of the guys doing the quads, they may really go for it and come down short and fall, something like that. But these sort of big awkward pops have always sort of baffled me as a viewer.
I know. And I mean, it's an individual thing why people pop. I mean, if they don't pop in practice, 99% of the time, they won't pop in competition.
Okay.
That's one thing. So you respect your practice, you come ready to work every day. And I'm sure most of them do, but you come ready to work with a good attitude. And every time you do your program, you feel like you're at the competition. You give it respect. And so, yes, you might be a little nervous. Scott Hamilton used to say, I'm nervous every day I do my program in practice. Every day at home, I'm nervous. There's a little anticipation because you want to do a good job. You want to do it cleanly. And then if you don't, you go back and work on it. But the inadvertent pop is just like a mistake. I think there's setup problems. I think they need to go back, and I would suggest to one skater to go back and count how many crossovers you use into that and have it exactly the same each time.
Yeah.
So that is determined, and which is the best setup for you, because I watched it miss and I saw the setup and I thought it didn't look like it could make it. You can make jumps from bad setups if you it's an easier jump, or if you do it all the time. Sure, you can mess up your takeoff and still pull it off. And that's where the training comes in. But where it's a really hard jump and your takeoff's a little different, I think there's then that doubt. And you can't think when you jump. You have to react.
Do you find that
I think they should count the setup?
One thing I've noticed is that skaters, when they get to the senior level, start to pull back on their training. They worked so hard doing double run-throughs and everything when they were younger.
Yeah.
And then when they get to the senior level, something changes. And I trained with, as an adult skater, with 2 of the senior ladies that were in the competition, and they will start their program. And if they miss a jump, stop the program. One of them sits down on the ice, and then, they restart. And this could happen 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in the practice.
It doesn't work like that in competition.
Yeah.
The competition, the judges won't let you go back and erase your mistake. You can't erase. You know, it's like you're right and you have no choice. You have to go for it. I think that's up to the coach.
Mhm.
And if the skater doesn't want to do it, I mean, they have to want it and they have to keep wanting it. And that's one thing, you know, it's hard to keep, you know, you've got to keep trying to strive to make yourself better in the sport. You have to keep trying to strive to make yourself better. If you've got everything you're going to get, say you can't get any more triples, you have to do something to make it interesting. Otherwise, you're in seniors for how many years doing the same jumps the same way, going the same skate America, the same skate this. It can get boring.
Yeah.
And it can get boring. And so you have to recreate what you're doing and keep trying to strive. There's no perfection in skating. You know, there's no limits. So there's no perfection. So there's always something you can work on. Spin faster, spin better. Work on your blade balance. I'm watching some of these skaters, I'm watching from the knees down. Right. And I don't know, because I've been out of skating for almost 12 years, you know, or 14, other than a little bit of consulting and getting back into it. I don't know how these new boots and blades are helping, if they're helping. Because I watch the skaters from the knees down. How many are on balance? How many are making noise? Some are very quiet. Right. Some aren't very quiet, but take a look at it and just see, because you know, there's always something to work on. You can always get more length out of each stroke you take, so you get faster and flow better. There's always something to work on, and you have to do it.
It's an interesting point you bring up, because always when I see an event in person, it's always fascinating to hear who's making a lot of noise with their blades and who is silent. Unfortunately, on the broadcast this year, I think they like the sound of the blades. So they had, I think the network.
The broadcast? Oh.
Yeah, because they had the microphone up so loud. So at first I thought, oh, wow, that person has really noisy blades. And I realized they did it for everyone. They were like amplifying the blade sound because they thought it was exciting or something. But I was like, no, now you're confusing me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even in person, you could hear them.
Okay.
You know, you could hear it in person. It wasn't just on the TV. You could hear them in person. And I'd say to my husband, I said, this is what I'm talking about. Listen to it. Great. Because it's just quality. It's just quality again. That adds to the quality. You know, when you hear people making a lot of noise, the quality isn't as good. Their balance on their blade. And I just watched skaters get off balance, it looked like. Quite a few looked like they were off balance. They weren't over their feet. I don't know how. Were you there?
We weren't there.
Okay.
We were watching at home. But
yeah,
I wanted to know, Jason Brown has done his long program, which is stunning, twice this season in competition. And he's missed that triple flip at the end both times.
So hard. So hard.
So hard. How would you approach, you know, he's going to the World Championships. How would you approach as a coach, making sure that doesn't happen again? Or should he change that ending?
Since I don't know his program perfectly, I saw it yesterday for the first time. I hadn't really seen it I hadn't really watched him this year. I'd have him do it, but I'd make sure the setup was good. Some of the setups are difficult for the skaters. You can see going in. I just thought he looked like he was getting tired.
Okay.
I thought he looked like he was getting a little fatigued. I think it was fatigue at the end of the program.
And to get up from a knee slide has to take a lot of energy.
Yeah, exactly. And you might simplify some of that to hit the jump.
Okay.
But I'm looking at the protocol with the, I was interested because I really hadn't looked at a protocol. I'd look at and see who landed what jump. But I looked at and saw how much they're getting for those big combinations at the end of the program. I mean, Ilia had 20 points, 21.28 on that triple Lutz, triple axel, triple toe sequence.
Right.
At the end of his program, 21.28. Well, you know, that made up for some of his 1.9s and 1.7s on the things he missed. And so, you know, sometimes people go, well, how did he get second in the long? How did he do that? Well, that's how, because he was over on that. You know, it's hard to see sometimes when you're there in person, you don't really know, and you don't really know exactly what points they're getting, but they should be posting this for the public, because I think the public's lost. And then big weight now between the marks. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's really uneven at this point. Yeah,
it's really a lot. But with this combination, with this type of racking up those points, the second half of the program, that's something everybody really needs to pay attention to and add on as much as you can there. If you can do it, as long as you don't fall.
Right.
You know, if it's a big fall, it's, you know, you're better off putting it where it's comfortable.
Now, someone like Ilia, he got high components. Do you think that his components are higher than they should be? And do you think that helps someone like him to encourage them to maybe improve that? You know, is that really helping him at the world level to give him that boost at nationals?
I think he looked so disgusted with himself. I don't think that was any question. I don't think he was happy. Sure,
Yeah,
I mean, sure, he's glad he won. He probably would have been just as happy getting second. He was happy going to Worlds. I don't know him, you know. I'm just looking at his face. He was completely disgusted.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he'd been doing clean programs in practice because I didn't see his practices.
Mm-hmm.
But so I'm not sure. But, you know,
I mean, in your experience, when we get sort of, you know, we know there's like sort of a nationals boost in every country, you know, to really help promote their skaters. And there were discussions at some point from certain coaches that they didn't want their skaters to be called for under rotation at nationals because it's sending that message to the international judging committee and it gives them something to look out for. Do you find that in international competition, like by the time you get to Worlds, those judges are taking into consideration the way their own federation sort of pushed them up or held them back at a nationals?
No.
Okay.
I've never seen no, I don't think they're taking that into consideration at all. I do think if you get the label of under rotating, once you get it, it's really hard to get rid of it. Yeah. I saw Karen Chen fight that all the time, even if she was clean. Oh, it might not be quite clean. Well, you know, I still have a problem. I still think they need to discuss further what's a clean landing, because you can't land flat-footed. You know, a blade's meant to be on a curve. So you have to come out on a curve. Well, a curve by definition is going to be less than straight, less than, you know, 180, where you want to measure your angle from. It's going to be, you know, you're going to come out that way. So is that a quarter turn or is that an eighth turn? Or what's the difference between a quarter and, you know, I understand you don't want to be landing forwards and turning, but once you're on that back outside edge, I think they need to redefine it, as well as the takeoffs on the toe jumps, the takeoff. How much do you turn on your tap going up into the air?
Right.
You know, how much does that count? And so if they really want to get into the nitty gritty on it, I don't know if it's made that much difference. Perhaps maybe it's made it more definitive. You can say, yes, Ilia got the higher technical than Jason because of this combination, because of this. So you could see that, but I'm not sure it's made better skating. Maybe a few better spins. A few people are doing better spins. More of the guys are doing better spins. You know, spins were sometimes pathetic in the men's event. they were really bad. Go back and look at the, you know, 80s. Some of the spins were bad. Yeah. So it's made them have to spin. I don't like the footwork steps, the step sequences. I don't like the way they have the swoop of the ice and getting all these ugly positions. I'd like to see some faster feet. There's no feet. Feet, you know, footwork with fast feet's kind of gone out of style, hasn't it? Right. Because you have to do all this swooping the ice and down and up. Well, I don't know. I don't think it's attractive.
And it's interesting. We've talked about on the show before that the difficulty in IJS is that there seems to develop a formula to get the highest amount of points. And then what happens is, for me, suddenly 6 skaters will have gone in the row with all the same kind of footwork sequences, all the same spins, because they know that will get them the level.
They all look the same.
And it's just sort of, how do you break through that noise and become the individuals that we love? And I found this was happening in particular in the ladies event here. There became a lot of interchangeable competitors. And I would imagine as a coach, it would be almost a priority to make your students stand out in some individualistic way, but it must be so difficult with all of these.
It is, because you have to check all the boxes, because it doesn't matter a lot of times it doesn't matter unless you've checked the boxes.
Right.
Individual, being different doesn't really matter. I saw the junior ladies event at Pacific Coast, which was in San Francisco. I went to watch it, and I didn't know the skaters. They didn't have programs, it was all on the phone and stuff. I think they're doing skating a disservice by not doing more, like the Nationals program with the pictures and getting the kids out there a little bit more, making it a little bit more exciting. But anyway, so I didn't know the skaters, and there were like 6 girls. They all had their hair in a tight bun, pulled back tight, same long dresses. I mean, they're longer. My objection, they're longer than some of the prom dresses you see the juniors wearing in high school, which are too short. I think those are too short, but these are awfully long. And these are young girls.
Right.
And they're dressed like, I thought they were dressed a little bit like old ladies.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, come on, give them a little bit more youth in what they're doing. And I think they're doing it because they want to appear mature, because there was this big push. Oh, people are too young. Well, then look who's our national champion, a 15 and 18-year-old. Okay. That's young. That's good. I mean, I love them. But anyway, at Pacific Coast, I thought they all looked alike, and they were interchangeable. They were all good jumpers, very good jumpers. I mean, very nice. Most of the technique was pretty good, nice and straight and even and clean. And they were pretty good, but it is hard. It is very, very hard. That's why somebody like Isabeau, I mean, for whatever, jumps may be a little bit difficult, but my gosh, when she skated that night, she was the best. There was no question. It was kind of like, I've told people, in order to win in skating, you have to be this much better. She was this much better than the next skater. She was that much better because every move was choreographed. She didn't have one empty spot. There wasn't one wasted movement. She made a 3-turn in the middle of the rink look beautiful, or a series of turns. Just simple turns look beautiful and capture attention. I mean, you can do a series of turns in the middle of the rink and everybody's looking at the program or eating, drinking, whatever. No, she made it look, she was captivating. And that's, that's unusual. That's hard. Will she be captivating in 4 years? I don't know how she works.
Well, another interesting with, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Do you think Isabeau's jumps will last with that technique that she has? She bends forward on her jump takeoff.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always hard. You're always looking to try and make as good a technique as you can, so it sustains you when you grow. When you go through puberty and you grow, you can sustain the jumps. You can keep the jumps going, and as you go through puberty, you have to get a little stronger. You have to have a little more strength, because what could lift it then, won't lift it later. Put 10 pounds on her, put 10 to 15 pounds as she matures, which is normal. And she grows another inch or 2, whatever. Will she have the strength to coordinate it and the quickness? It's hard to know, but that's where her coach will come in. And that's where her coach will come in and keep working on her jumps and keep working on them, as well as developing her style.
Is that why you had Christy do the weight training? Was that for power, or was that because she was growing, or what was the?
Well, she had her competition at Halifax. My husband had suggested it for a while. She had a competition at Halifax, and she fell like 4 or 5 times at Worlds in Halifax, and she just looked weak. She was doing pairs at the same time, yes, but she just looked physically weak. And so I said, okay, I guess we better do something. I had been afraid of weights. I was afraid of injury. I was afraid of bulking up, and neither of which happened. They actually help prevent injuries. If it's done correctly, it has to be monitored, it has to be done correctly. And it made the difference between a bronze and a gold in my mind. I don't know if she thinks that. She hated weights. She hated them, she didn't do figure skating to lift heavy weights, but it made the difference. And it gave her, in my eyes, it gave her another 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch on her jumps, which is a lot. It allows you to look a little bit more effortless coming out. All of a sudden her arms came up, her arms were up at the end of her program, and just those little things made a difference, because at the top, they're all very, very close. And so when you're doing anything, if you've skated for 8 years or 10 years, you've probably gained the physical strength you're going to get from skating. So then what do? You have to add something to it. And you don't just want to do, you've got to watch injury. There's no point. And I had one little boy that did weights, and he had been bullied as a figure skater. So he got in the weight room, and this kid, he was a little bit of a tough kid anyway, but kind of like this, but he actually loved the weights, because then he went to school and nobody bullied him anymore because the kid was strong. But then his skating suffered. It doesn't do any good to be a champion off the ice or a champion in the weight room if you don't translate it. And anything that's done off ice, unless the coach sees an improvement on the ice, you're spinning your wheels. There's no point. You can do all the off ice in the world, but unless the coach sees an improvement, say, hey, they have more control. Oh, I see this. Oh, they're able to lift up. Oh, they got a little higher on their jumps. If the coach can see that, then it's worthwhile. Otherwise, hours in the weight room or off ice or all this stuff, it's just a waste of time. It has to be used wisely. It has to have a result. I think what I'm saying, you have to get a result from it. Flexibility is number one. Even if they can lift their leg up, you have to have quad flexibility, you have to have hip flexor flexibility, and you have to maintain that and use that. So, that's, yes, it did help her. It made the difference between bronze and a gold in my mind. I don't think there was any question. She had her jumps. Now, she had her jumps from age 14 or 15. She had triple Lutz. She didn't need weights to learn the triple Lutz. What it did was gave her that control at the end of the program, gave her a little bit more height. She got up just a little bit higher, and a quarter of an inch is a lot.
Now, what happened to the Salchow? Because I found a video of Christy at the 87 Junior Nationals, and the Salchow was easy and like money. So what happened to this jump?
I have no idea. I don't know. She just started swinging that 3 turn so much and became such a mental thing. Yes, she did as a young child all the time. Okay. I have no idea, but it became kind of a mental thing. I don't know if when they were trying to throw triple sows or what.
Did you ever consider taking it out? Did she need that jump at the time? What was your strategy?
She needed every jump. You had Midori Ito doing 2 triple axels. You had Tanya Harding doing triple axel. Come on, you need every jump you could. You couldn't take out anything.
Okay.
But what always blew my mind about that narrative is I felt she didn't get enough credit for her triples. Because at the time that was such a rarity, and you see they're still struggling with that exact combination now.
I know. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't worry about that too much. Again, it was the older system, and it was I didn't think about it. I don't know what they gave her for it, but it's a lot of going back and forth with it. But we went to the Olympic Games. Midori did a huge triple axel in the long program. She would, I watched her in the practice at the Olympics, and she did have, I think, too ambitious of a program. They stuffed everything in. It was a program that probably would have done well in the mittens event that year or years after even. They were very ambitious with the amount of technical things she had. And I think it was just a little bit too much for her.
Speaking of too much, I'm intrigued by the schedule of the season this year. Obviously, Christy did not have to deal with the 4 continents championships.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me, being only 2 weeks after nationals, is this something that you think could really benefit your skaters if you were a coach, or would it be best for them to rest before Worlds? I'm always intrigued by who chooses to.
I heard some are going on a tour.
Some are, yeah. Ilia and Jason won't be there, but I think they're sending all 3 ladies.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Bradie maybe needs another competition under her belt, because she hasn't competed as much this year, has she? Or she had to pull out. Did she have to pull out of one of her internationals, I believe? Yeah. And I think Amber Glenn would need it again. Maybe it'd be good. Isabeau's so new and young, it might be fine for her. But they used to send 4 continents. They never sent the top people. They always sent like 3rd and 4th.
Right.
To that. So I don't really know. Maybe the coaches said, look, I'd really like her to have another competition. And if that's the case, then they should.
For you, like with Christy, was there an ideal time between competitions? Like, even we know on the Grand Prix, some sort of like this back-to-back idea. To me, that would seem so exhausting.
It's too many.
Yeah.
It's too many. And again, like I said, if you start at, your first year in seniors or first year in seniors would only be if you're really great junior, outstanding junior, or maybe it's your second year in seniors and you do Skate America, and then you're in seniors for another 5-6 years and you're doing Skate America and then back to Skate America.
Yeah.
After a while, it loses. When you first go to Skate America, go, wow, I'm going to Skate America. Yes. And then after you've done it 3 times, it's more like a job to go to do it. But, the only thing, they had her, Christy didn't have an agent until after the Olympics. She didn't sign with anybody until after the Olympic Games because we had made a decision together, her parents and I sat down and Christy and said, look, Christy didn't want to hear anything about it. She didn't want to hear anything about money. I couldn't say, I was up in Edmonton with her and I'd be asking her things. And anytime I mentioned an event or anything, and any idea of money, it was just like, boom, just put a curtain down. So I stopped. I never talked money to her. She didn't want to hear it. And so we decided that a year of income, having an agent, wasn't worth not skating well at the Olympics. Because if you don't skate well at Olympics, nobody really wants you.
Right.
And at the Olympic Games, I know between short and long, CBS came up and said to me, oh, we want her for a piece on your day in between, because there was a day in between short and long always in those days. And I said, well, she doesn't have time, no. And they said, oh, my producer really wants it, and push. I said, no. I said, if you want her on, Sunday morning after the competition's over, you come see me, that's fine. But it's the day in between. They finally relented and had her, they did just a shot of her getting a crepe at this place it was a trailer called the Roach Coach. It was not a Roach Coach, but it was right by the rink and it was a trailer, and she went and got a crepe there. And that's what they showed, because there was no way. I couldn't believe they let those kids on the Jumbotron before their long programs doing interviews. I would not, and the Jumbotron, 2 groups before they skated, both Ilia and Isabeau, they had him up on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you've got your audience here. The audience was poorly attended, so you're not going to get any more people there by having that.
Right.
Do the interview afterwards.
Yeah.
Don't talk before how you're, I don't know. I just think it's, I think it's hard. Let the coach do the talk. If somebody wants to talk, let the coach step in and take that responsibility. Leave the skater alone. Just leave the skater. Just leave him. And I think there has to be enough break in between. I think there was one thing that U.S. figure skating wanted Christy to do in between Olympics and Worlds, because she went on to Worlds, and we let her do it for a little bit, but it's a lot of missed training. You lose the rhythm. And I don't know how do you know how long this tour is? I just heard about it yesterday.
I think it's 11 days, 8 shows in 11 days. So,
and it's in Europe though.
It's in Europe.
Would
you have your skater do their short program on the tour? What would your strategy be?
I have no idea. I would, I don't think you don't know what conditions are going to be either.
Right.
You don't know if they get any practice. You don't know what the spotlights are going to be. You don't know. I mean, all it takes, if you have your spotlight in the wrong way, somebody could fall and hurt themselves. I don't know. I think you'd be better off at home, going through your normal routine, going back to normality, getting back to your normal run throughs, your stretching, your practice, your this, your that. If I don't know. And somebody said, well, it's for money. And that's again where I say, if you just hold off, unless the only reason you have an agent early, and this is what I told the coaches, is if your skater's really poor and doesn't have the money and you're not getting paid and they don't have the money to skate, and they're that good that an agent would help them get some gigs or something to get some money coming in. And then you have to do it because you really need the funds.
Right.
But if you can get by without, you're better off. But if you need the funds, then you have to do it.
I was curious, as a coach, how much pressure did you feel before the Olympics when Christy had lost to both Midori and Tanya ahead of time? Did that change your strategy? Did that mess with you?
Well, she was in a little bit of a unique position because she had Lillehammer too. She could have stayed in another 2 years and had another go at it 2 years later. So she was in a little bit of a unique position where she, you know, it wasn't like you feel like, oh, you have to win. Yes, she had won worlds the year before. You know, she was the world champion going in, but she, you know, yeah, she had a couple rough skates or not as good, and lost. At the U.S. Nationals, I remember she skated pretty well, and I remember saying to her mother, and we kind of just joked about, well, what happens if she wins the Olympics? We didn't even say it. We didn't even say the word. It's like saying, you know, Macbeth in the theater. You don't say Macbeth in the theater. Kind of like you don't talk about winning the Olympics first. And so, you know, and then we said, well, we won't have to worry about it. Just, you know, that's kind of how we went at it. You know, we didn't talk about it. So it wasn't a big thing of conversation. It was always more about the performance. It was always more about trying to skate the way you practice, and practice the way you want to skate, and that's what you're doing. It's more about that.
No, she did have the opportunity to go back for Lillehammer had she wanted to. Did you want her to, or was that something?
Well, I mean, she toyed back and forth, you know, and, you know, she got kind of, I don't know who got kind of excited and was going to put her name in. And I said, you know, all I thought if she wants it more than anything else in the world, then you do it. Because then if it comes out great, fine. If it doesn't come out great, well, you wanted to do it. It's what you wanted to do. You felt a need to do it. So that's what you did. But unless you go back and work even harder, because you can't just work as hard and get what you got, you know, you have to kind of up it a little bit and put a little more into it. If it's what you want more than anything else in the world, then it's worth it to you. Because then no matter what the outcome, you're still content with it, you know? And the only ones, I mean, Ekaterina Gordeva and Grinkov were successful. I thought Torvill and Dean should have won.
Same.
You know, I was in Lillehammer. I thought they should have won. I know they looked different than they did when they won their gold medal. I still liked them. I thought they were better, but Katarina Witt helped her professional career. She kind of catapulted. I remember when she got third in the short program, you know, it was just really cute because all of a sudden she had all the press running after her. She was doing warm up and running, you know, doing a jogging around the rink. She had the press running after her all of a sudden, and she was just taking great pleasure in it. But it's very hard to come back. You know, it's very, very hard. I mean, if Brian Boitano couldn't do it, I mean, that's one of the most consistent, hardworking, striving skaters I've ever seen in my life. I mean, talk about discipline and hardworking and detailed and everything else. It's very difficult. And that's why I thought with Christy, if she wanted it more than anything else in the world, then you do it. If not, it'd be just like pulling teeth. It'd be just like, argh. And we never really had that type of relationship. We had a good working relationship. We understood each other, and we, you know, she knew what I wanted, I knew what she wanted, and we had a good relationship that way. So there was never an adversarial. We were on the same team. And I think that was another thing I talked to coaches about. You know, you have to be part of a team with the parent, and it has to be a team. And sure, there's different times when one member of the team may not be happy, but you have to work together. And so since we had that, it was always pleasurable. You know, it was never a pain, never a bother. But to go back again, if it's something somebody wanted more than anything else in the world, then you do it. And then she just said, look, I'm happy what I'm doing. I worked all these years to get what I've got now. I want to do this. I'm not going back. And she made the right decision for herself. I mean, you know, yes, of course, if you're a two-time Olympian like Katarina Witt, or, you know, then you're more of a legend. But you still have to do what's right for you. And you have to know your own mind. And that's important as a skater, important as a coach.
I want to ask you about mental training, because so many skaters work with sports psychologists. Do you think that a lot of times, is it a mental issue or is it a discipline issue in training when we see skaters underperform? Hard to say,
It's hard to say. You can't say completely. If they do clean programs every single day in practice, if they're 100% in their programs and they start messing up a lot in competition, then you maybe need some other help. Maybe the coach isn't able to do the mental training enough. All coaches are sports psychologists. You know, we constantly working with the skaters, working on their concentration and putting it into practical use. I think the sports psychologist can give them skills to use, assuming they're psychologically healthy. I'd say 90% of your skaters are psychologically healthy, so I don't think there's some other thing going, at least the ones I've worked with, something else going on with them. If there is, then you need some other help, but a sports psychologist isn't going to give that to you, but they can give you tools to use to practice and use in practice. And then if they're good, you use them as part of your competition. I mean, all coaches have to be sports psychologists, and they're the ones that should be right there. The hard part is when there's sports psychologists or choreographers or whatever that have to be involved, that have to get their 2 cents in at the last minute rather than keeping the path clear. And I think that makes it difficult because it's people, too many people coming from too many different directions for a skater. I think it has to be one voice at the end. I think you have all this other help beforehand. You've practiced it, you've used it, you worked on it. But once you get out there, it should be clean. I mean, if skaters going through conniptions or what, I didn't see anybody going through conniptions at the competition. I couldn't see anybody. I mean, but I wasn't backstage. I wasn't back there. I was just watching perform.
Even in the kiss and cry, it's very fascinating for me if a skater does not do well and you sort of like hear the coach like going in and giving all this technical information in the kiss and cry. I've always thought, I don't know that the skater is ready to hear any of that in this
They're
moment.
not listening.
Right? Yeah, I don't know.
A little bit wasted breath.
Yeah, and I'm also intrigued by some of these rituals that different coaches will have with their students right before the program. Not so much in the warm-up, but this sort of like, let's hold hands and have a reading about this. And I remember it used to infuriate Dick Button because he would always say, what is the coach possibly saying right now that they need to hear? Was that something you found effective with Christy? Would you have sort of that little joint moment?
I didn't say anything to her. I said nothing to her. I said nothing to her at the last minutes. I mean, sometimes I just say, remind her to keep her head up. Or I say at the end, pulling my head up, come on, let's pull up a little bit more, get it straight, firm up. And, what else are you going to say?
Right.
It's too much. I mean, they have to have, again, as I said, it's a rehearsal sport. So you rehearse your warm up on the ice, you rehearse your off ice warm, then you rehearse your on ice warm, then you get off the ice and you rehearse what you're going to do. If you have to wait 45 minutes or an hour to skate, which in some of these competitions you do, that's difficult. You have to have it practiced. I had some kids, I don't want to take my skates off. I don't want to take my skates. Get your skates off your feet and do some warm-ups without them. Then you can put them back on. They're afraid they'd lose the warmth of them, but you're going to lose the warmth in that 45 minutes or an hour anyway.
Right.
You're going to lose that feeling. So it's better to take them off and stay flexible, stretch, walk through your program, get some, but that should be rehearsed and you can rehearse it at home. Sometimes when they're younger, the moms will say, I'm paying for this ice time. She's off the ice. Well, it's a practice. You have to do it.
Right.
Practice getting off and then getting back on and seeing what you've got. Pretend it's competition and doing enough of that. And so that competition seems pretty normal. You can say, I feel like I'm back at practice. But again, that's ideal. You can do all the planning, all the ideal things in the world, and the skater may still go out and fall down. That's skating. They're on a thin blade. They're on slippery ice. Some of them look like their blades weren't sharp enough to me. A couple of the guys looked like they were slipping. And either they weren't bending their knees enough or their blades were wrong.
And in general, as you train skaters, did you find that it was dependent on the skater, or did you prefer having skaters that were around other elite skaters, or do you like sort of that like private sort of time where they're the big fish in the little pond? What was your experience with that?
Well, you have to do with what you have. Okay.
Yeah.
Brian Bertano skated with no one around and little postage stamp ice rink to begin with, got his triples, then another little bigger than postage stamp ice rink and got all his triples. And then he'd come over to Berkeley Ice Line, which was 100 by 200 and practice sometimes. I started Christy at a shopping center rink that was undersized. on public sessions, and she learned her double axels that way, started learning her triples on public sessions in a little bit, but then once I married my husband, moved up to the Royal Glenora Club, it was heaven. I mean, she was at the world team level, but when I moved up there were 6 coaches and 5 had people at the world level. You don't get that. And it was mainly skaters and coaches at the rink. On the senior sessions, there were more skaters who were over the age of 18. They're from all over the world. It was one of the best training environments I've ever seen. And I really, Jan Olmark had a great, had camaraderie, build up camaraderie among the skaters. And it was a friendly, competitive atmosphere. It was competitive, but it was friendly. And of course, Kurt Browning was always fun on the ice. He was always fun, and it was fun. And for Christy, it was invaluable because she also all of a sudden, instead of being the oldest skater in the rink, all of a sudden wasn't the oldest skater. Also, on a senior session, there was Christy and Lisa Sargent, Canadian champion, and Anna Torplin, the Danish girl, and then probably 12 to 14 guys. You don't get that. Most rinks, and what was nice about it is they move faster. They move bigger, faster, and they treat it more like a game. It was a wonderful training atmosphere, really wonderful. I mean, it was and the coaches got along. I mean, everybody tried to make an effort to get along. That's one thing I told the coaches and the parents: try to get along because it makes a difference for your skater. Don't pick fights, in other words, because it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Now, Kurt told us that he could do a program clean one time in practice and feel fine for the competition. What was his training style like compared to Christy's? Like, is he just an anomaly, his own?
He's a little bit of an anomaly, but I also know that Kurt would come into normal senior sessions in the morning and pretend like it was, I saw him, not all the time, but a lot of days look like, oh, this was a game. Oh, this was fun. Ha ha ha. I fell down. Oh, casual. And then come back at night, at 9 o'clock at night when no one was there and run his program. I don't know how many times he did it then. But he'd come back when no one was there late at night because the rink stayed open till midnight or 11. And he'd come back after everybody left and run his program. I don't know how many times he did that. But so, I mean, I don't know if you actually saw how Kurt trained. Would he have been better if he could? I don't know. It was lots of fun to have around the rink. Great personality, big personality. And, I'm smiling now. It makes it fun. It made it more fun to have, that. And then people feed off of it. Right. So it helps. It's better than, and it's really nice to train with guys who move faster and skate big.
But it's an interesting point you bring out about having fun, because it's been sort of a discussion for us this season in particular, that it seems such a rare occasion that the skater skating seems to be really enjoying themselves and exuding the joy of skating as sort of this intense concentration and like a face of grit and determination, which in my opinion, as the viewer, sort of puts up a wall between the skater and the audience. So what was your take on that in person at Nationals? Were you feeling big, joyous energy from certain people that were just really having a moment? I mean, obviously someone. She had a moment. She looked up at the crowd. She was taught to look up at the cheap seats. Very easy trick. Yeah. Show skaters would teach you that. We were taught that early on and have to practice. And I had my skaters practice. It's hard to do, especially when you're getting ready for a triple jump. You can't be selling up there, but look up at the cheap seats. There wasn't anybody up there in San Jose. It was empty, but still look at them, look out more. And she had joy for the time she started her program. Her face just lit up. It was really lovely. I don't know what she'll look like the next competition. I don't know what she'll look like next year. It was really enjoyable this year. Jason looks up. Jason looks out. Yeah. There aren't very many people who do. Yeah. And it's a shame. It's a shame. A few of the other skaters did. There were some others. I didn't see the juniors. I saw the junior men. The one junior man that got second overall, he was good. He was good. What's his? I'll have to look up. I had the protocols here, but he was second in junior men, and he skated with some style. That was Jacob Sanchez. Oh, and Lucas was
presented pretty well. He presented nicely. So, I mean, there were a couple of junior men that were good, but Jacob had kind of a skate of his lifetime, I think. I don't know what he'd done before. I don't know him, you know, but he really lit up. And I did not see the junior ladies. I wish I could have.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Kirk Hagueto, who did The Godfather from Boy Who Throws the Snow Up at the End? I mean, he really has a moment on the ice. So.
There were some dramatic skaters from North Jersey at this junior.
Yes. Well, I wanted to ask you about, with all your experience in skating, you mentioned the crowd, and what would you change about skating to bring back, the audiences and that individuality?
Audiences is a big problem. That's huge. And then in the United States, we have to really work on getting more numbers in skating. I don't see a way around it. I think there needs to be more numbers, have a wider talent pool. I think they were only in the competition circuit, they had these qualifying competitions, participating, trying to get the points to get in the sectionals. I think I heard there were only 1,500 skaters participating. A lot of skaters, if they're not going to make it, just aren't bothering. You're losing kids. You're losing somebody that might do something later. Maybe they think they'll never make it. Maybe they won't. But you're losing people, and you're not giving enough. It's narrowing down our pool of skaters. We need more skaters. We need more people doing it. And again, if they don't, maybe they won't make it in singles. Maybe they'll end up a pair skater. Maybe they're tiny and perfect for pairs. Maybe they're too tiny to be big enough in singles, but they'll be a perfect pair partner. Maybe they'll be an ice dance partner, but we need people skating. Maybe they'll be your judges or your officials or your coaches or something. So you need more people in the sport. And I think they need to hit a big mark. I don't know how to get them in. I mean, I think most of the coaches told me COVID really hurt them. And the other thing is they're fighting with hockey continually for ice time. Hockey is a big concern. And I didn't realize how bad it was in some areas, that they can't get enough ice because hockey takes it. Or even if you have a freestyle session, hockey might come in and take the session. You come for a 7 a.m. session, they'll be canceled because hockey took it over. So, I mean, that kind of stuff is hard. Maybe they do have to teach more in a group. Maybe they have to teach more group lessons, group freestyle lessons to teach the jumps. Maybe they do need to start thinking of that if they don't have the ice time. But something to get you need to get, I mean, there's no simple solution. I think you need to get more people to skate. As far as the crowds, I think they have to something has to capture their imagination there, and they have to want to see it.
I'm just curious, when I go back and I watch great nationals like Christy at 92 and all these sorts of things, I don't necessarily get a feel for what the event would have been like as a spectator in those in-between times. Because I have to say, when I went to San Jose for the last nationals, which
that was packed.
It was packed, but also they sort of treat it like a hockey game. There's blaring techno music while we're trying to get scores. There's some amateur singing in between every warm-up. There's, hot dogs.
I forgot about that. That was my first nationals back in the US.
I did not forget about that because I was for a skating theatrical experience. I used to like how Dick used to do it in Landover, where everyone's in tuxedos and you're having martinis and it's beautifully lit. But to me, there is such this abrasive, sort of obnoxious hockey game quality to it that really takes away from the competition itself when they're blaring all this music in between every single skater's program. And now that the skaters can use lyrics, it seems they only continue that pattern of sort of less than popular music. Did you find that it was as raucous back in the day, or is that something that's developed over time?
You see, again, I was in Canada from 92. That was my last US skater. I had Canadian skaters that year because I was living in Canada at the time. But until 95, that nationals, that was the 96 nationals, correct? That was the first time. Then we just moved back at the end of 1995 to the States. And so I came down and watched nationals. I don't remember it being raucous. I don't remember, but I remember it being packed. It was packed to the hilt. And you have to get people in the door first. I don't think they stay away. When I first met my husband at the Calgary Olympics, he said, well, I'll meet you at the ice dance. And I said, okay, fine. And how I know where you are? Oh, he said, well, ISU section was always empty, or IOC section was always empty because they didn't come to half the events. So he said, well, I'll meet you somewhere there. So there he was. Anyway, he's sitting with a big bucket of popcorn. I said, people don't eat popcorn at skating. He said, Christy, look up at the top. Everybody's eating popcorn. And, you know, at the Olympics, it's very casual, and it is more like a hockey game and more, you know, a little bit more like that. He said, this isn't the ballet. You know, we go to the ballet now, and now they allow you at San Francisco Ballet, you can bring your drink in with your lid on. And they even put drink holders. Yes, they did. Well,
you still can't do that at the opera.
They don't let you do it.
No, never for the opera. No, it's just me backstage with the cup with the lid. Yeah, no.
Well, do you sing?
I'm an opera. Dave is a wonderful adult skater. I just love skating, and I'm an opera singer, and I find that they are basically the same thing. Basically the same.
Very similar. One of my husband's patients was an opera singer who had to have operations on his vocal cord. Yeah, and then once he got out, he worked his way back up, but all he could get was understudy. He'd been up. And then he found out another one of his patients actually is an opera singer, and he didn't even know it until he does some local theater too now, and whatever. Anyway, small world.
That is a small world.
I mean, no, San Francisco Ballet, they allow you to bring your wine or champagne. It's in a cup. And I'm telling you, sometimes some of these pieces, we take the series, we do the whole series, and we love the ballet, but in between the more classical pieces, they stick the new pieces.
They sneak them in, yeah.
Stick them in, and I'm kind of like, okay, you're giving me 3 of those, okay. It's beautiful. They've got exquisite bodies to work with. These are top level dancers, and they're absolutely exquisite looking to look at. But some of the pieces I don't care for. I don't like the music. It's okay. It's out there a little bit.
You're basically describing nationals as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing.
And I don't like some of the music either. I hate the vocal music. I don't hate it completely, but I think you have to have an outstanding skater to skate to vocal. And some of the titles of some of the pieces.
They have to be the right genre. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the pieces. I mean, one skated piece that says, I feel sick, if you interpreted it. And I thought, you know, it wasn't that hard to interpret from French. I mean, my French is terrible, but you know, I know.
And the context of that Je suis malade is dark. It's
very dark.
Thick is heavy and not appropriate for anyone under the age of 21.
That's what I thought. And and then I think it's hard to skate the Impossible Dream. You know, I think that's a hard piece. Yes, he skates beautifully, but the connotation of it, you know,
is that it doesn't happen for Don Quixote.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, beautiful. I mean, they're listening to the music, but I think if you're going to skate the words, then you better be darn sure you can know what the words mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely don't think it helps when Ilia Malinin comes to a screeching halt during his footwork and the music goes, I'm so tired. Because
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah.
Is that what he said? It says, oh, that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, there was a Paris team at the Olympics, and the whole song just kept saying, I keep falling.
Well, that's like the piece from Carousel. Years and years ago, somebody skated to an exhibition from Carousel, and it's saying like something's passed me by, like my good times have passed me by.
Oh yeah. If I loved you, it's the duet. Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful piece, beautiful music, but passed me by, so it's over. You know, I don't know. That's where I think it gets difficult, and also to skate to music that's not understood.
Right.
You know, it's very difficult. Very, very difficult. Well, Christy did an exhibition at the Albertville Olympics to Milord. You know, Edith Piaf piece.
Yeah.
She did, when she warmed it up, she did a warm up. All the French people were in this. People came in just to watch, and all the French, and they were stomping, clapping. It was great.
Singing
the
along.
Exhibition, it was Canadians and Americans, and they didn't know what it was.
Oh, they didn't get it.
They didn't get it. It didn't hit here. It didn't hit their heart. And so it was really interesting. then she did an encore at Yankee Doodle Dandy, and they stood up. You know?
Yeah.
So it's
our
really
recognizable pieces a little less sophisticated, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny.
Exactly. But I think the music, I don't think they did anybody a favor to have vocal. I mean, yes, the kids like it because it feels easier because they don't have to hit any high points on it. Right. I did watch Isabeau's again. She does hit high points in that. She does hit some high points. So she actually uses, there's an accent because most of them, it's just like elevator music for most of them. It doesn't have, so they can be, and that's why some finished off the music. How many, quite a few finished late.
Yeah.
On their music. And I think it's because it's indistinguishable. It's hard. How would you know where to start up when you're starting up, you know, because you'll go back and work on sections of a program and you have to know where to begin, where to start. How can you know?
And so many now try to do just one through line composition. And it probably was a novel concept at the beginning, but I miss, especially the early 90s really, really epitomized this, where we're starting big and then we get a little bit slower, more reserved, more beautiful, and then we end big. But a lot of these just sort of plateau it either.
They're ending down. Yeah. They all end down.
They're so sad and angsty. Yeah, it's
even
tough.
An old show skater, her name was, she was a choreographer, Terry Rudolph, used to teach. You always come up. If you're bowing, you're going back, you go down, but you're going back, but you're coming up for the applause. When you go down, they stop applauding. And same thing at the ending. If it's a downer, it's just like saying yes, 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 or no, no, no. But quite a few, it must be a lot of melancholy people.
I know, I think a lot of teen angst, it must be in that music.
It must be, must be. But I don't think they did anybody service for having the vocal. I think you'll get a good skater that they're good anyway, and they skate the vocal. And you say, well, see, they look good to it. Yes, but the average person, and that's what I think is really important with skating, is that these younger skaters look at the good skaters, but think, how am I going to do better?
Right.
How can I do better than that? What can I do that's better? What can I do that's more artistic? What can I do that's more entertaining? You know, what can I do better than they're doing? And not just copy them. Because I see, you know, of course, the first thing kids want to do is copy the star.
Right.
And it never comes out the same.
Yeah.
It never comes out the same. So.
Well, thank you so much. This was so
You're
interesting.
welcome. It was fun.
Such a wealth of information. So thank you so much.
Oh, good, good.